correct.
Oh, my top five. I got to give the Heartland Mamas their top five.
All right, everybody, we're ready. How's it going? YouTube live stream chat room. Where are you at? Pete. Now we have this guy. Now, Ben, I need you to talk to this guy. We got this guy, PC Amnesty.
Mm-hmm.
Believe he's a Trump voter.
Oh, a Trump voter. How do you find his way over here?
I'm not sure, but
hey, welcome to the show.
For the most part, he's nice. You know, so hey, you know,
I got no problem with Trump voters.
Say something to PC Amnesty there.
Yo, PC, I got no problem with Trump voters. Okay,
he's got no
All
problem.
Right. No problem with you. Okay, you know, sort of.
Get along with.
I got a problem with your president, but other than that, you know, Trump voters.
Happy Friday, PC Amnesty. Just behave in that live stream chat, all right? For the most
part,
we all get along.
Yeah, we all get along. You know, be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
No hate.
Can't we all just get along?
Can we all get along?
All right.
Name the person who said that.
I don't know.
Rodney King.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. All right, your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, January 3rd is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Local 126 and District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 9 sponsor this program, as well as the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky show is brought to you in part by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Ben Joravsky, hit us with that song of the day, could you please?
I've been singing it all day. For some reason, I got the great Lou Rawls in my mind. My lady love. Come on, PC. You're a Trump supporter, but you love Lou Rawls. I've been with you through all of my ups and downs. A day doesn't pass without me loving Lou Rawls more and more and more.
The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Friday, January 3rd, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's another Romano Rundown with Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain. We welcome back the Heartland Mamas, Heidi Henry and Murray Briel, and May Whiteside. And now your host, not a Heartland Mama, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Back to Bad News Friday. And here's why. Yesterday was filled with joy and jubilation at the Ben Joravsky Show as we celebrated day one of legal reefer in Illinois. Actually, day one was Wednesday. Thursday, we were celebrating the news of day one.
That's correct.
Yes, thank you, Mueller. The papers were filled with glorious stories about long lines at reefer dispensaries all throughout Chicago. People driving in all the way from Kentucky, Dennis's favorite state, to buy drugs.
Love Kentucky.
Yeah, to buy edibles. Happiness reigned. Who could be unhappy? Well, that was yesterday. Today, papers filled with horrible news. Each story more sobering and sad and twisted than the one that preceded it. Murder, corruption, sex scandals, firestorms engulfing all of Australia. Just a sample headline from today, page 14. This is page 14 of today's Sun-Times. Boy 5 loses hand in firework explosion. Women, 2 kids not injured after vehicle shot on Dan Ryan. Man shot 11 times, killed. Man stabbed on Blue Line. Man killed in Belmont Craig and shot himself, but was also hit by police gunfire. This is just one page of one paper, ladies and gentlemen. On top of that, there's the international news. Firestorms, a blast furnace in Australia brought on by climate change, which half of this country denies. And then in the middle of it all, President Donald Trump decides it would be a good idea to kill by drone one of the top Iranian generals who was in Iraq. And now it looks like we're on the edge of war with Iran. Stories breaking into, as I came on the show, D, that 1,500 American troops getting sent to the Middle East. I thought Trump was going to keep us. He was going to keep us out of Middle Eastern wars. Isn't that what he said he was going to do, D? It just seems like we're endlessly involved in Middle Eastern wars. Doesn't matter who the president is. Donald Trump was supposed to be crazy. He lies. He cheats. He plays around on his wife. He is a complete hypocrite, but at least he was going to keep us out of Middle Eastern wars. Isn't that what he promised, D? Seems like we're entangled in them as much as ever. Anyway, yesterday I was teasing the Chicago Tribune for their headline there, which was like straight out of Reefer Madness. How do we explain to our kids about legal reefer? Like that was the most challenging thing. Wait, let's break it down. Like 1, like anybody should take parental advice from the Chicago Tribune. 2, like legal reefer is the most challenging thing a child is going to have to confront in the world today. Hey, Tribsters, how do you explain page 14 of today's Sun-Times to the children? Yes, I'm looking for that headline any day now in the Chicago Tribune. Anyway, no more gloom and doom. We're going to have a great show today, everybody. We're going to accentuate the positive, right, D? That's what I want to hear. That's correct. Wait, where's my Mueller?
That's correct.
Thank you, Bob Mueller. Anyway, we have a great show. Romano Hussain will be in here. The Romano Rundown every Friday on the Ben Joravsky Show. May Whiteside will be here. She's the chairwoman of Flourish PAC. And she'll be talking about the need to encourage more black women to get involved in the political process, have more campaigns hire black. I agree with her 100%. If the Democrats are going to retake the White House, retake the Senate, obviously you need to encourage the base, and the base is black voters in general and black women in particular. So May Whiteside will be offering up some interesting thoughts on that. And then 2 of my favorite guests of all time, the Heartland Mamas. As we speak, they're driving that truck in from the suburbs. They're probably listening to the Doors, man. You know, Heidi Henry's got the Doors cranked up. Break on through to the other side. Anyway, the Heartland Mamas are on their way. Murray Bria and Heidi Henry. Oh my God! And they've been talking. As they come on, they're regulars on this show. Once every 6 weeks, they drive in from the boonies, as they like to call it, and they have their own podcast, the Heartland Mamas. And they've been declaring they're going to take the strong stand about Bernie Bros. They're sick and tired of Bernie Bros. I'll tell you who's upset about that. Young Dennis over there.
Big time.
He's got a tattoo that says, I love Bernie.
I'll show it to you sometime.
Yesterday we had some fun with this, and I'm going to raise this with the Heartland Mamas. Oh, my God. There was a hilarious guy on the live stream. So yesterday I did my top 5 for Democratic candidates. You know, I think we're down to 10. I can't remember how many there are. But I basically can only do 5. Bernie, number 1 right now. Elizabeth Warren is number 2. I think Amy Klobuchar was 3. And Andrew Yang was 4. And JB, Joey Biden, was 5. And some guy on, he was hilarious. He goes, hey, Ben. Oh my God! You talk about nightmares, D. He was one to put out, hey Ben, because Joe Biden had said I'm considering having a Republican running mate. I would consider it. I think that's what he said. Anyway, so some guy wrote in, hey Ben, if who was it? Lindsey Graham. If Joe Biden took Lindsey Graham as his running mate, would you still vote for Joe? Oh my God! I have nightmares on that one. What would I do? Lindsey Graham is Joe. Please, JB. I call him JB, man.
Yeah, get him. That kind of sounds like Pritzker.
It does.
You know, it's his first name and all.
You know what? I may have to reconsider that.
Yeah. Come on.
Thank you for pointing that out to me.
You're welcome.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
Joey B. How about Joey B?
There we
Joey
go.
B.
Joey
Come
B.
on.
There we go.
First of all, you don't need. But I know what he was doing. He was signaling that he is very bipartisan. He would consider it. But Joe, you didn't really mean that, right? I mean, you would not consider. Why would you nominate a Republican? Your policies are already Republican enough that you had alienated absolutely every Democrat, at least the ones that listen to my show. Anyway, what a nightmare. Lindsey Graham on the ticket with Joe Biden. Who was it that said that, D? Remember? Who was it that wrote that on their
no, I can't remember. It may have been KMA Barry. I don't think so, though. I don't know.
No, it was a very clever guy, and it gave me nightmares. Anyway, that was, I'm going to ask the Heartland Mamas who their top five are. Dennis came in with his top five. Can I do your top five, D?
Yeah, let's hear him.
Number 1, Bernie. Number 2, Bernie. Number 3, Bernie. Number 4, Bernie. And number 5, Bernie.
No, that was our guest yesterday, Robin Peterson, who said that.
Oh, she said that? Yeah. Oh, I thought you said that. All right, anyway, I think you were nodding your head. Yeah, I agree with that. Plenty of political talk ahead of us. But before we do that, the young man from Dalton, the man they call the doctor, with the news.
He said Dalton. It's Alton.
Oh, did I say Dalton?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I might have said Dalton.
How's it going? No, I don't have a Bernie tattoo. Let's find out what's happening in Chicago.
But they do call you the doctor.
No, they don't. Let's
Dr.
find out what's happening in Chicago and/or Illinois this afternoon. More updates on the reefer beat. Yes, recreational marijuana is legal in the state of Illinois. No, neither Ben nor myself have bought any of it, at least not at a shop. But yes, you may still be able to. While a handful of the 9 Chicago dispensaries across the city have reportedly sold out of the flower, thanks to Block Club Chicago, a great source for Chicago city and neighborhood news, by the way. Go sign up and subscribe. As of last night, here are 3 Chicago dispensaries with recreational reefer possibly, I say possibly, because like I said, as of last night, could have available reefer for recreational users. Go online and look it up before you go here, all right? But let's find out these dispensaries. Our first dispensary is Dispensary 33 on Clark Street. And
that's Clark and...
It's like... Yes. It's Clark and
Sunnyside? Milo I think that's where Milo gets his reefer.
It's past Sunnyside.
Oh,
okay. It's past Lawrence. It's between Lawrence and Clark.
Yes, that's where Milo gets his reefer. Stop in and say hello to Milo, everybody.
Kyle Young waiting on the live stream chat. He says Dalton Ben has Roadhouse on the mind.
I was singing. Is it the Roadhouse Blues? Help me out with that one, the Doors song. I was singing "Break On Through the Other Side," but there's the other Doors song I'm thinking of. Anyway, I have the Doors on my mind right now.
Dispensary 33 may have recreational reefer available.
Hold on, let me go.
Okay, sorry. And I meant to say it's on Clark Street between Lawrence and Foster. I said Clark between Lawrence and Clark, between Lawrence and Foster.
I think that's the one Milo goes to.
There we go. All right, and Mission Dispensary. 8554 South Commercial Avenue. They still have flour, vape cartridges, edibles, and more available for recreational users, according to staff. Midway Dispensary, 5648 South Archer Avenue, and Sunnyside Dispensary, 3812 North Clark Street, could not be reached for comment Friday, but they did have flour available, according to their online menus.
I love the legalization. Flour available. I love the legalization of reefer, folks. It's the best news story I've had in years. I love the end of the drug war.
And Ben, it looks like there are more pot shops to pop up in our city soon. Mm-hmm. Our good friend and Sun-Times reefer writer Tom Schuba has the story.
Oh, my God. The hardest working man in the Chicago media these days, young Tommy Schuba.
I know. We're trying to book him on the show. He's a hustler.
He's too busy. I see him every now and then walking down the street. Yesterday, this is how hardworking young Tommy Schuba is. He had a salad in his hand. Remember that?
Yeah.
I'm eating at my desk.
We only see Tom Schuba as we're leaving the building outside. That's
And
the
he
only
goes,
time we see him.
I'll come on tomorrow. And then like an hour later, Ben, I'm too busy to come on tomorrow. He's the busiest journalist in the city of Chicago. There's a lot of reefer to cover, D, and he's covering it.
All right, so Tom Schuba's got the story. Now that recreational marijuana sales are up and running at 9 dispensaries in Chicago, the next wave of the Windy City Green Rush is on. New weed shops could sprout along Randolph Street's Restaurant Row in the West Loop.
Ooh, that's right around the corner from us.
Oh, God, Ben's going to be late every day for the show. It's in the same building as a celebrated restaurant in River North on 35th Street, less than a mile west of Sox Park. And no joke, on Weed Street in Lincoln Park.
Whoa, get
Tom
it?
Schuba.
Tommy, all over that story.
6 companies have submitted a total of 20 locations for the next 13 dispensaries set to open citywide, record show. So not all of those spots will go through the zoning process. Some companies appear to have filed for multiple addresses in case locations get rejected or don't pan out. So that's your, what we may as well call your daily legal pod update. I have a feeling this will be consuming our show for a while. Ben Joravsky, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's great that reefer was legalized. I think it's absolutely wonderful that this is the first step toward ending the war on drugs. I think, folks, as much as we delight in the giggles of reefer, we should think about the fact that the war on drugs was a horrific chapter in our country's history, our recent history. And so this is really what it should be all about, D, ending this mindless war on drugs, which has consumed so many neighborhoods and families and individuals. So just want to keep that in your mind. We're enjoying reefer. It's absurd that so much paranoia was raged. Just the notion, again, of the Chicago Tribune feeling compelled to have a story. What are you going to tell your children? As though marijuana is somehow the greatest evil that somebody is going to encounter. And I say this every time I feel compelled to say this. I am not a reefer user. That's the funny thing. I'm not a reefer user. Although Lisa Solomon was here
I see CBD in your future. I do.
I don't know. Lisa. Every paper, by the way, has their reefer expert, and my beloved reader is no different. Lisa Solomon was in the studio on Tuesday, wasn't it, D? Wasn't it Tuesday?
Yeah. What was Tuesday?
Or that Lisa Solomon was in the studio? Wasn't it Tuesday? I've lost track of time. I think it was Tuesday.
No, it was New Year's Eve.
And whoa, look who's been smoking that
Was it New
reefer.
Year's Eve?
Tuesday was New Year's Eve. Ground control to Major Dennis.
People, you know what I'm talking about. People, who knows what day it is when these holidays
Ground
come?
control to Major Dennis. Anyway,
correct.
so I may try a little bit here and there, but no, I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's the greatest story, and as I said, the alternatives. The news is so horrific these days. It's just the pending war in the Middle East that the United States seems determined to get involved in. The wildfires in Australia. It's just horrific news. So good news in Chicago and in the state of Illinois. We legalize reefer. People are happy. Okay? Oh, can't have happy people. That's bad. I wish George Carlin were alive to see this. Don't you, D?
Oh, absolutely.
He would have a field day with
Oh,
this.
my God. Don't get me thinking about that. Shout out to Kyle Young. Kyle weighed in. He said the new West Loop dispensary will cause the Benny J show to be like a Cheech and Chong movie. That's pretty funny.
That is funny, man.
Hey, man.
Our next guest is Romano Hussain. Yeah.
Brianna, what's going on, Brianna? Happy New Year. She waited. She says, I just got back from my new favorite dispensary. What's the name of the show again, man? The Ben Joravsky Show?
My favorite I just love the name dispensary,
Well, you called it, I can't remember what you called it yesterday.
It's a cannabis dispensary.
You called it something yesterday.
I just think it's so funny
like
when
pot center or something.
When people call it cannabis, it just reminds me, when black people want to be nice about white people, they call them Caucasians. So it's like cannabis. I'm going to smoke some cannabis. I don't think anybody calls it cannabis out in the real world, do they, D? I don't know.
No.
People in Alton calling it cannabis?
No.
Pot, reefer, weed, grass, whatever.
Dope. Oh, Stephen weighed in on the live stream chat. Happy New Year, Stephen. Glad you joined us here. All right, in other news, the trend continues. More news involving federal agents investigating Illinois politicians and their suspect handling of money. Happy New Year!
Give me the reefer. That's why I need it. Oh, my goodness.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, Tina Sfondella's John Seidel, and one Robert Herget.
Herget's all over this story.
Federal agents seized more than $51,000 in cash from a safe found inside Cook County Commissioner Jeffrey Tobolsky's house last year, according to a just obtained federal document that indicates authorities are interested in yet another suburban mayor, Oak Brook Terrace's Tony Ragucci. May all acquaintance be. Come on, Ben, forgot it.
Why are you singing Old Lang Syne?
I don't know. It's the new year.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, it's a new year, but it's an old story. Corruption in the city of Chicago, corruption in the county of Cook, corruption in the state of Illinois. It'll keep reporters going. Two stories, can guarantee, will continue throughout 2020. In the year 2020, two stories will continue: corruption in the state of Illinois and legal weed in the state of Illinois. Those will be competing stories throughout the entire year, maybe with an alligator thrown into it. But yeah, this one here.
My money's on Penguin this year.
Someone's gonna release a penguin in the Humboldt Park. Yeah, this is a story. I'm not quite sure what the connection of the cash that was seized is to the scandals, but it's a great headline: cash found. And the Sun-Times had a very clever headline. They made it look as though the mayors are themselves on the currency. See that?
Oh,
Great one. Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah. I think the guy who designs the front page of the Sun-Times is hitting that dispensary over there on the West Loop. Anyway, so this, I'm not quite sure what the money, what the direct connection is, but there's some kind of connection. The feds seized the money. So, yeah, this, by the way, I just cut a deal with young Danny Mialopoulos from WBEZ, who knows more about corruption than any man alive, and he'll be coming in for a bonus interview next week. Looking forward to that. So we're doing
in a good way. He knows more about corruption than any man alive.
Come on, man. That's what I meant.
I know.
He's also a huge fan. Talk about jumping on a bandwagon. I don't know if I told you this. Young Daniel's a huge fan of the Milwaukee Bucks because of the Greek Freak. He loves the Milwaukee Bucks all of a sudden. I, of course, am beloved Chicago Bulls are just keep doing worse and worse. That's why I need that reefer, D, my beloved Bulls. Anyway, Dan will break down some of these scandals. Ultimately, what is the goal? What is the goal of these ongoing investigations? My guess is they're trying to go after Michael Joseph Madigan, and they think these guys can lead them to them. The feds think that these local pals can lead them to them. Otherwise, I guess they're just cleaning up corruption in suburban Oak Brook Terrace. I didn't even know there was a town called Oak Brook Terrace, D.
We gotta go sometime.
Okay.
Ride our bikes there when it gets warm out. Agents seized a whopping $60,000 in cash from Ragucci's west suburban home last year, the document shows, though it does not indicate whether he's being eyed as part of the same political corruption investigation that's been rocking local governments. Ragucci couldn't be reached for comment on Thursday. Surprise, surprise. But in November, he was asked by the Chicago Sun-Times whether he or his community has drawn scrutiny from federal agents because of the town's use of the company Safe Speed to operate red light cameras. Safe Speed is a focus of the ongoing federal investigation, with agents looking into whether company representatives landed deals through payoffs. The company was subject of a 2017 Chicago Tribune story about the controversial push to install Safe Speed cameras in the town and the questionable efforts of then state senator Martin Sandoval to go to bat for the firm. Oh, we know about Martin Sandoval, don't we?
Yeah, Martin Sandoval. Yeah, we've been following that corruption story for a while. Former state senator Marty Sandoval.
We got quotes from Ragucci here. He says, quote, "This was all done legit." He told the Sun-Times of the Safe Speed contract. "We did everything legit and clean here. Communities get a cut of the revenue from red light tickets, and our cameras are doing big numbers."
Yeah. The red light.
Very Trump sounding.
Yeah,
big
numbers. I know. He took a page. What's our friend who likes Trump on our who follows us?
Don't get him going. Just keep talking.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's for you. All right. Big numbers, big cameras. It is very Trump-like. You're absolutely correct. And listen, folks, what a bad setup for Illinois, Chicago, really anywhere. The whole red light program, where it was just like a holdup. these cameras that snap your pictures of you and get, like when you go through a red light just before it changes and then they just squeeze you. It's like taking motorists and turning them upside down and shaking them and getting the change and collecting it. There's nothing legit about it. And then they would tell us, oh, well, this is all about safety. That's why we're doing this. We want to bring down safety. Yeah, you want safety, you want to squeeze us. And there were politicians getting a little piece of the pie in order for Safe Speed, allegedly, to get the contracts. It was like, I've warned people in Chicago and Illinois not to believe anything they say when they're government. And that's so nihilistic of me and so cynical and jaded. But whenever our government comes out and say, we have a new, wonderful way to keep you safe, look out, everybody. It's not about keeping you safe. It's about squeezing you like an accordion. Now we're going to have like 5 years of Safe Speed corruption stories.
Safe Speed Gate? Coming soon to the Ben Joravsky Show.
Safe Speed Gate. Yes, indeed.
All right,
Red Light Gate. How about that? Red Light Gate. Oh, I just heard this Jimi Hendrix song, Red Light.
Oh,
have you ever heard
cool.
that song?
Yeah, I have.
You have?
I
Really?
have heard the song Red Light.
Oh, man, I heard it the other day. I was like, oh, yeah, get me to the dispensary right now.
Okay, I think by the end of this week, you're going to be smoking pot again.
There's a red light over yonder.
Good Lord.
Love Jimi Hendrix.
I got to work with this guy, everybody, in 2020. Okay, so, I was going to ask you, how many Safe Speed videos are you on, pal?
I got...
Are you a speeder?
I got nailed for one. It was a big... I think... Didn't we do this on the old show? I think we did a bit about this. Remember when we did Ben Joravsky Theater? Anyway, we got a ticket for going through red light, one of those red light tickets, and it was unclear who was responsible, me or my wife. And I finally figured out my wife was responsible for it. Boy, did I. First it was like, you got a ticket. Then I figured out to turn things around. It was you that got the ticket. So yeah, I forget. It was like $100 or something like that. Yeah, man, what a scam that was. Everything is a scam in the city of Chicago, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm sure we'll be having follow-ups on that story very soon. Who would have thought that all this dirty, damn corruption would have gone away in 2020, huh?
How's the Tribune going to explain this to the little kiddies? Remember yesterday? How do we explain to the children about legal marijuana? Whoa, how are we going to explain it? Hey, Tribune, how are you going to explain corruption to the little kiddies? How are you going to explain, safe speed and shaking down motorists to the little kid? Marijuana's the least of it. We should do a list of all the difficult things to explain to the little kiddies. Where would legalize reefer and weed? Where would it fall in that list, D? I think you could probably get 1,000 things more difficult to explain to kiddies than legalized reefer.
And guys, don't expect an interview with anybody from the Chicago Tribune on this show, okay?
By the way, hold it.
We have one.
I'm going to say, first of all, he was a guest on this show.
Yes.
Eric Zorn.
Yeah.
And he wrote a good column today. Eric, a shout out to you. Me saying this will probably get you demoted or something, but I'm just going to read Eric Zorn's opening, which I agree with wholeheartedly. Ready?
Let's hear it.
This is from Eric Zorn's column in the Chicago Tribune today. Over the years, I've changed a number of minds arguing politics with readers over email. That number is 0. I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, I thought, all right, it's not hilarious funny, but when I read that, I go, oh, that's a good line. I had two thoughts. One, that's a good line. 2, God, I wish I had come up with that line. And then he goes on, not that I'm a lousy debater or am usually wrong, far from it, but that in my experience, no one ever admits defeat at the conclusion of email squabbles. I could not agree with Eric Zorn more. He's absolutely, when people send you emails, you suck, blah, blah, don't respond. That would be my, okay, I wrote my column. That was my point of view, right? You weighed in with your response. That's your point of view. Okay? Why continue the discussion anymore? I could see you weren't convinced by my first column. And then I always like when people try to point out something like you got wrong, like this fact. So should you respond every time they point out something? Usually they make up something that you said so that they can say you got it wrong. But you know what? I don't even respond to those. God bless. In the old days, the reader, man. Oh my God, D. Every time I got a letter, they would make me respond. You're kidding me? I got to respond to this? Yes, Ben. Write a response. So they would have these that would be this long letter blasting me, and then there would be my long response, and then the reader would rewrite my response. So it wasn't even my, whatever. I love the days now where they just let it rip. Anyway.
Oh, the life of Ben Joravsky.
I'm with you 100%, Eric Zorn. I'm with you 250. We got to get Eric Zorn back on the show.
We do got to. And Rex Hupke.
We've never had Rex Hupke.
We've never had Rex Hupke on the show.
But you know what? Here's the problem. We start naming Tribune people we like. They're going to get in trouble.
I know. We have to put like luchador wrestling masks on when they come on the show on the live stream.
Romano Hussain has entered the studio. Romano Hussain has entered the studio.
All right. So that's the latest of what's going on in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. Coming up later, I think Ben's going to be discussing it with Romano Hussain. Oh, Ben's been riffing on it all day. The latest news involving our former Illinois governor, Rod Blagojevich.
A historian now. He's a historian. Interesting interpretation of history.
Definitely going to be talking about that. And real quick here on the YouTube live stream chat, Kyle weighed in. He says, Ben's tips for a healthy marriage. Blame your significant other.
It was
kind of what he said there.
Oh, man, but it's true. In that particular case, I think it was my wife. I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Kyle also says, Ben, please interview John Cass.
With or without the help of something from a dispensary?
I would say maybe without.
Man, Johnny Cass's column today, boy, I got to tell you. D, I know you love him, but good God.
I love him. It's great. It's awesome.
Oh, wait. You love Johnny Cash, not Johnny Cass.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Today's column. I listen, I always say this. I read people with different worldviews because you want to know. Maybe they can convince me. Eric Zorn, maybe a John Cass can convince me that marijuana is the greatest evil that this world has ever seen. He fell a little short of that goal, if that were his goal in today's column. But I read it anyway. Right. Open-minded.
Oh, and our good friend KMA Barry weighed in and said, still waiting for those Romano Rundown T-shirts.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Chris Fusco, where was it? Hats or T-shirts?
T-shirts.
Yeah, man. Yes, let's get the Sun-Times publicity machine working on that one, okay?
All right, everybody, we're going to take a break here. Don't go anywhere because coming up, we are going to be talking with Romano Rundown for our segment Without a T-Shirt, the Romano Rundown. It's the Ben Joravsky Show live from the Chicago Sun-Times. The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them: ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time: ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Hey, commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Every Friday, Romano Hussain comes into the studio, the Romano Rundown. And so first of all, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's to both of you guys, too.
Yes.
I can't believe
Thanks.
it's 2020.
No, me neither. 2020.
It's
Ben,
scary.
sing that song.
No, there's a song called In the Year 2525, which I know nobody in the world knows.
Oh, no. I
No.
thought you were talking about that Conan O'Brien skit.
No,
like,
no.
the year
Oh,
2000.
that was awesome, Ben.
Yeah, no, this is different.
This is like disco or something.
No, this is before disco.
Oh.
In the year 2525. It's
I
like
do not know it.
I know. And by the way, I know it's such a great rendition of
What
it.
year did it come out?
It came out in the 60s, and it's dystopian. So in other words, it's predicting this horrific. I was just like a little 12-year-old Benny Joravsky at home in Evanston listening to this on my transistor radio going, wow, this is so deep, man.
Well, for my generation, it was 1999 by Prince.
Yes,
And we were-
1999.
We were
man.
all like, wow, we're going to be so old. I was going to be in my 20s.
Flying
at the
cars.
time.
I remember thinking there'd be flying
No,
cars.
1999. The whole premise was that the world was coming to
Yeah.
an end in 2000.
2000.
So
Yeah,
let's
Y2K,
party.
yeah.
And that opening line of his, man, the guy was a genius. Like, what's the opening? It goes, wow. He has that wow in the opening line. If you think about it. Anyway, I love Prince.
Yeah. I have a nephew who was born in 2000, so he's 19.
19.
So I'm just like,
Hey 19. That's another song.
yeah, I know that one.
You know that song?
Yeah.
Steely Dan. All right. Anyway, Romano, enough this goofing around. Let's get down to business, as they say. First of all, we've been having a lot of fun talking about the legalization of marijuana. I believe that the real significance is that it's a small but important step in ending the war on drugs. I think you'll agree with me on that. And so thank goodness we're taking it. Right? Do you agree
What,
with
taking
me?
what?
Oh, this one, not
Taking
the
what?
reefer,
Yeah, I know.
but the small but significant step
Oh, it's
toward ending it.
definitely historical.
Yeah. But I mean, the war on drugs was
Yeah,
like
oh,
a
yeah, yeah,
bad, evil thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's completely going to change overnight. As you know, we've seen it. I've seen a lot of people talking about the legalization too on Twitter, and a lot of people still think it's, obviously there's a lot of inequalities. involved in the
Absolutely,
legal-
yeah.
But so but no, it's definitely a step. We heard Kim Fox exonerating some, wiping clean
Mm-hmm.
the slate, and then what did Pritzker do? He basically he expunged
The records.
the
yeah.
records of many people, thousands of people. So yeah, it's going towards that direction.
A small,
It takes, small,
but significant step.
yeah.
I would put it that way. And it also lends itself to some funny headlines. So let's take a moment
Yes.
to. You please tell me who's responsible for these funny
Yeah,
headlines.
it's
in the
our
Sun
copy
Times?
desk. I can't claim. I know all the guys on the copy desk, and they are mostly men. I don't think there's any women. That's sad. There's no women on the copy desk anymore. There used to be, but there are all these guys that I know, and I've known them for a long time. But I can't say who did what. But I know some of them have come up to me and they go, "Oh well, legalization has really helped us." One guy, I won't name his name just because I don't know if he wants to be called out, but he was telling me, he's like, I never even smoked pot, but he's like, this is great, and he's coming up with a lot of those headlines.
Wait, time
So-
out. That's fine
I'm
that you
just
don't
saying-
name his name, but just to think about this a minute.
Yeah, that he
you
was-
said I won't name his name because he doesn't want to be outed, but he admitted that he never smoked pot. Like that. That's embarrassing. It's like a shame. He never
No.
smoked reefer, so we don't want
I'm
to name
almost
him.
in that same category. So
Almost.
I mean,
Interesting
so-
word. I'm almost in that same category.
but I'm pretty much.
It's like Bill Clinton or something.
yeah.
I know. Yeah, I'm pretty much. But this person. But I know it's three people that I know who've been coming with the headlines because in the meetings and they've told me that I came up with that, and they're actually not. Most of them aren't even on that active on social media. So people are always talking about how the great headlines are, and.
Can they talk? Are these guys talkers? I should bring them on the show.
Oh, one guy, we always tell him he should have a podcast because he talks movies with me all the time. And his name is Joel Carlson, and he likes the Grateful Dead. And the joke between us is that he went to see a Grateful Dead concert, and he's not somebody that you would think was a Deadhead. And he told me he paid a lot for the tickets, and he still won't tell me how much. So that's a running joke. I'm like, well, how much
much
does
did you
one
pay?
pay? And he won't tell me. But we talk about movies all the time.
All right. Well, we should definitely bring him on. By the way, just a shameless promotion on our podcast is Sergio Mims' greatest movies of the decade. I urge everybody, not now, but later, check it out. Sergio's got some. We'll bring Joel Carson. We could.
Oh yeah, so the three guys on the copy desk, and I don't know, who comes up with what. But the main guys are Brian Barker, Joel Carlson, and Eric White. But there might be some other people who come with headlines because sometimes in the news meetings, like there are other, reporters, other editors who come up with certain headlines. So sometimes Chris Fosco does, but I think those guys come up with a lot of really good headlines.
Well, a
lot of the catchy
the two
ones.
yesterday that we had delight with were the front page headline was Reefer Gladness.
That was the day after
Yes,
legalization.
it was yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then when you turn the page with the full story, it was about all the dispensaries. The headline was Buzz Thrill.
Oh, okay.
And
I'll go over there and ask. I know
Yeah.
all those guys,
So
so
they're,
I can find out and tell them that you
I
would
love
like
them.
to talk to
Very
them.
close.
I'm thinking about just writing up a few of them and just sending them their way. Like, hey,
Yeah.
everyone will use this.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know?
like the guys who would send back in the day Johnny Carson jokes.
Oh.
There would be guys who would send Johnny Carson and David Letterman jokes that they hope they would use in their monologues. I actually knew a guy who did this.
Wow.
And and if they took your joke, you got some I don't know
money?
how much. Yeah, 5, 10. I don't
From
know.
the other old Ed McMahon,
Ed McMahon would not be writing the checks.
since he did the sweepstakes stuff.
Yeah, wow.
I didn't think Johnny Carson was funny when I was a kid. I was like, why do
Please
people,
leave this room
why do
right
people
now.
find him funny?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, that's like a generational thing. You don't like him either?
No, yeah, I really like him. It's very subtle, though. Like, when I got older, I got it. Very subtle, but he's funny.
I want to get down to the news of the day, but I have
Okay,
to tell you,
sorry.
Romana, that I've spent many times, this is a little embarrassing confession. I get on these YouTube jags. The other day, I went Alex Jones. I ended up watching
wow.
Alex Jones for over an hour because it's preparing for an interview. We had Jim Coogan coming in, attorney Jim Coogan. We were talking about Alex Jones' case with Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
And so to prep for it, I just started. And the next thing you know, an hour of YouTube. Have you ever seen Alex Jones on YouTube?
No,
Do you know who he is?
I've heard of him.
Alex, you just don't watch Alex Jones.
Oh,
you would
why?
not like it. But
Why?
anyway,
Who is he? Like,
Alex
he's-
Jones
is
is an
he-
exceedingly popular podcast. Not a podcaster. I guess he's
radio.
a
He's-
radio.
Oh,
head.
okay.
And he's the one who promotes all these conspiracy theories.
Oh, did you hear about a recent one that came out? This woman. Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you.
Anyway,
yeah,
so
go
Alex Jones, he was he's very popular. He's got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of followers. Donald Trump has been on his show, but he went too far with Sandy Hook.
Oh.
He's the one who proclaimed that, in his opinion, there's evidence that Sandy Hook, the murder of 12 kids at Sandy Hook by a deranged gunman, was in fact staged and was part of a plot to.
Oh God! No,
build
I know who.
Yeah,
I know his-
and so the parents of the kids
Oh, I can't. Oh.
have sued him, and now it's this endless case, a libel case, and we broke it down with Jim Coogan. We took the deep dive on it, and we'll drop that show this weekend. I got to tell you, Jim Coogan knows his stuff. But anyway, to prepare for that, I listened to for hours,
Wow.
like an hour worth of Alex Jones. So
Have you heard of Liz Crokin?
no, I do. Do you know her, D?
So yeah, yesterday there was some stuff about her going on Twitter, and she's also a right-wing commentator, and she's predicted that Tom Hanks was going to be arrested for pedophilia, and it was just. So then the reader, shout out to the reader, did a piece on her. She's a former journalist who worked at the Trib and the Sun-Times, and she started her career, and she's from Winnetka, but she somehow she worked at the Tribune and worked at the City News Bureau where I worked, but it was called City News Service when the Tribune took it over, and she might have worked with people I know, but apparently she's become this right-wing conspiracist theory who has all these followers, and it's just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, you can build up quite a.
So I was gonna say I could do that too with my career. Just say I don't
You
like
could.
myself and I don't like my immigrant parents, and it's like I don't know. I'm
if
just saying.
you did that, you would.
I would
make
get a lot.
fortune.
Oh, I know, because there are people like that. There's like Muslims or people who call themselves former Muslims or even Muslims, and they just say everything that the right wants to hear. It's just very interesting. It's bizarre, and it's kind of like this money making business, and they become very popular. I
yeah.
know who they are, so.
There's it's the same thing with black people who join up with Trump.
Yeah.
And
They become celebrities.
They become celebrities, and the right wing takes care of them. You say what the right wants to hear, and they'll take care of you. It's not that way on the left, by the way. I can just tell you that right now. You can say what the left wants to hear, and they fire you. Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yes.
Anyway, we won't go there. All right. So we did legal weed. I just have to talk about Blago with you. I've been looking for someone to talk about this all day. This story. Did you edit this particular story?
I didn't edit that story, but I did see it, and we did talk about it in the news meeting yesterday. So apparently, well, not even apparently, Rod Blagojevich wrote a column in this, I guess, news outlet called Newsmax, which I've never heard of. But he, as we all know, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison for mostly the charges related to him trying to sell former U.S. Senator Barack Obama's seat that was empty, or the slot was empty once he became president. And anyway, so, he has been, trying to get pardoned by Donald Trump. Anyway, he just said he had made some sort of commentary in this column about how if Abraham Lincoln was alive, the Democrats and their line of, the impeachment hearings, they would have impeached Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
So he just said something like, would Nancy Pelosi's House Democrats use the same flimsy impeachment standards they would use to impeach Abraham Lincoln? So, he is trying to get pardoned by Donald Trump. So for him to, call out Abraham Lincoln's name, who, everybody knows Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and just kind of align him with Donald Trump. Donald Trump would love that, to be compared, to have some sort of connection
with Abraham
Lincoln, because we all know that he aspires to be certain, he aspires to greatness. We know that, and loves it when people compare him, or he compares himself and cuts his head off and puts it on Sylvester Stallone's body. But
say what you will about Donald Trump, he is in no way, any way, in temperament or anything with Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, well, what we know.
But it was a preposterous. And let me just start with this. I don't know if we ever had this conversation. I believe Rod Blagojevich should be let out of prison. I believe 14 years is too much.
A lot of people would agree with you and think that 14 years is a lot, because I can tell you that I've been at 26 in California, the criminal courthouse, and there have been people charged with murder or, involuntary manslaughter, where a person was killed. And not to say that, conviction for this sort of crime, nobody wants, Illinois has been known, that's a stereotype, that Illinois is very corrupt. Not to say that what he did was right, but a lot of people have said that they thought the sentence was excessive. And how many years has it been now? Like, God, 9 years?
I can't remember.
7 years?
It's a blur.
Because his trial was in 2009, I think, or he was convicted in 2009. And he's supposed to be out in 2024.
Yeah, 2024. So it's ridiculous that he's still in prison. It's not serving any larger purpose. It's not in any way, as we see, keeping Illinois politicians from being corrupt.
Yeah.
Today's Sun-Times is a story about 3 politicians who are under investigation. So it's not a deterrent. It's overkill in terms of prosecution. Now, having said that, this is such a blatant attempt to win over Donald Trump.
Yeah.
By completely rewriting history and feeding fuel to his enormous ego.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
That's what it is. So what I was just saying is there are people who have been, charged with or convicted of involuntary manslaughter or murder, and they get fewer years or serve fewer
than
years in prison. Yeah, than Blagojevich. Yeah, because he has to serve, I think, at least 12 years of his 14-year sentence.
Now, what I don't understand is why hasn't Donald Trump already pulled the trigger and let him out? He keeps talking about it, but he doesn't do it.
I don't know. It's pretty interesting. You would think that he would have done it already because he hates Chicago or Illinois and thinks it's, kind of like a screw you to them, but I don't know.
Just think about it, Romano.
I don't know. Maybe he's just dangling it in front of...
To keep it going?
To keep it going, keep talking about it whenever he needs a distraction. Now that we have this problem in Iran, and
that's putting it mildly. I don't know if you saw this. 3,500 troops or 2,500 troops just dispatched. Utter insanity. Donald Trump was supposed to keep us out of Middle Eastern wars, and look where we're going. But the thing about Blagojevich, and I've talked about this. I don't know. Probably not with you, but Dave McKinney was in the studio. We did this deep dive on Blagojevich, and
he did a whole podcast.
Yes, he did. Now we talked about his podcast. So, like all the paranoia that Blagojevich has about federal investigators, overreach, and having too much power feeds into the paranoia that Donald Trump has. So there's obviously an alliance there. What they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I can understand that. And I believe that Rod Blagojevich got too many years. Donald Trump, in my humble opinion, is no victim of anything. So Rod has a legitimate gripe. But if think about this, Rummana, if Trump were to release Blagojevich, that would undercut all the rhetoric that Republicans in Illinois have about how evil Rod Blagojevich was,
true.
and how evil the Democrats are. You know what I'm saying? It would
Yeah.
be, like, how would the Tribune deal with that? They would lose their mind.
And shout out to Frank here. He says Rod Blagojevich was convicted in 2011 and reported to jail in 2012.
Oh, okay.
God, I got to get Frank on the
I thought-
show. Guy knows everything.
I thought he was maybe the trial was in 2009 because wasn't there 2 trials?
Yes,
Yeah.
very good. There were 2 trials.
Because you know why I remember that? Because at the time, the federal courts reporter was Natasha Korecki, and every time the Blagojevich trial happened, I got sent over there to cover. One time it was John Burge, and the other time it was the Mumbai terrorist attack.
By the way, let's just give a shout out to Natasha Korecki. Great reporter.
Yes.
We used to have her on. I don't know what Natasha's doing these days, but she was a great guest on the show. And one last thing before we leave this. In his essay, Rod Blagojevich says Democrats of then and aligning them with Democrats of today. And I just want to point out a historical fact that the Democrats of the 1860s have essentially morphed into the Republicans of the 21st century. Almost all the Democrats who were Democrats in the South in the 1960s when LBJ pushed through Congress civil rights bills converted to the Republican Party. So today's Republican Party is the heirs of the Democrats of the past. It's always interesting, Romana, when Republicans want to pretend as though they are standing up for black people and civil rights. They'll talk about, well, the Republican Party was the one, the Abraham
hundreds
Lincoln.
of years ago.
Yeah, hundreds of freaking years ago. You just want to lie and make stuff up. You can always find someone to fool. Anyway, I could talk about Blago all day. Andy Grimm's great story, and today hasn't really...
It hasn't come out in print yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
talk about
I
Andy
posted it
Grimm's.
yesterday. So
edited it.
Andy Grimm is the criminal courts reporter at the Sun-Times, and I'm one of his editors. And he did a story on what the police touted as the first gun conviction of 2019, but it actually wasn't. There was this young man named Daryl Rhyme. He was 23 at the time, and he was stopped. And police said that he was arrested around 12:01 or 12:02, and at the time, the next day, probably the police put out a press release saying that we got our first gun arrest, and turns out that the 2 arresting officers and the officer that signed off on the arrest report were disciplined 4 months later and the charges were dropped actually 2 weeks later, and I don't think anybody had known about that until Andy's story this week. And the charges were dropped, and Daryl Rhyme already had another gun case. It was a pending gun case that happened in June. So Andy's story shows that he actually wasn't the first the gun arrest at that time. It was another man named Kevin Richardson who shot in the air. And Andy just points out that Daryl Rhyme kind of fit the profile of what former police superintendent and other top police brass described as, the problem in the city. Someone that's been arrested for gun possession over and over again. And because this guy had previous arrests for the same thing. And how I said he was arrested last year. So he was actually arrested a half hour before New Year's in 2019, because the body cam footage that the police officers had showed that it wasn't 12:01. So these officers were all disciplined, as I said. So it just talks about how he really wasn't the first.
Now, the officers, why were they disciplined?
They were disciplined for falsifying the police report, because they said he got arrested at 12:01. And Anthony Guglielmi, the Chicago police spokesperson, said he was arrested at 12:02. But basically, they said he was the first gun arrest of 2019, and he actually was one of the last gun arrests of 2018. And so it's an interesting story. And at the end of when all is said and done, Daryl Rhyme in December of 2019, he actually got convicted of, I think it was, was it December of this year? Anyway, like just recently, he got put in back to jail because he was convicted of that previous case. So he's behind bars too right now.
A strange story on many fronts.
Yes, and Andy, I understand is going to be here later today at 3:00, so he can probably tell you about what records he sought out and what information he got and how he got information about the story. But it's interesting because we know all of us, and it made the first gun arrest of Daryl Rhyme, the man that turned out not to be the first gun arrest. It made national news. It was kind of making the rounds when this happened, but nobody knew that the charges. Nobody was told that the charge, or nobody followed up and found out the charges were dropped 2 weeks later.
Well, there's certain rituals that come with the new year in journalism game in Chicago. Romano, you know him well because you've been a reporter in this town for years.
Too long.
And too long. I didn't say that. You said that. And an editor. And many of those rituals were put aside because of legal marijuana. So that was like the big news. But usually the first day,
first baby.
Let's see if you can do it. Let's go.
There's first baby, first park permit, first wedding in Cook County.
Yep. Very good.
We did have them, but they were kind of like put on the back burner.
Yeah. And then, so first wedding, first park permit. Yeah, there's always the guy in line for the picnic permit.
I never understood the appeal of that, but I don't know.
What was the appeal of driving all the way from Kentucky to be first in line or to buy some
park permit? I don't
legal
know.
reefer, though? I mean,
I don't hate. I told you, I don't know. When I edited that story, I'm like, okay, I asked someone else to look over the story. I'm like, I don't know that much about pot. Can someone just like look over the story one more time?
Should have had your husband look it over.
I know. I was like,
sorry, Mick.
I was like, yeah. I told one of the guys, I'm like, I admit I'm not a pot expert because this is Tom Schuba's story right before on New Year's Eve.
Tommy.
And so I told him, I'm like, do you have to go out and like hang out with those people? Like, and he said, yeah. And he had to get up at 5. And went out by 6 a.m.
Tommy Schuba was the first in line.
Yeah. Well, so my other colleague Stefano Esposito had to go out to the dispensaries on the second day, and none of the I guess people at the dispensaries, like they're like, who is this guy? Why are you here? He has a British accent.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, where's Tom? Like they weren't trusting. It was just weird. It was still Stefano was like, but anyway. But I don't know, like some people like drove. Okay, like I said, I'm not an expert. Like really, like I know people want to be there as part of history, but you want to get up, like you're gonna drive 4 hours away and just.
Hey,
I don't know.
Whatever
Everybody
rocks
has
your boat,
you know. Okay, when iPhones first came out, when I got my first iPhone, I remember I went and there was like a huge line. This was like 2008. That's when I got my first iPhone, and I was like, forget this. I'm like, and I left and I came back like 2 weeks later when it was like, why can't, I know people want to be there for the history, but it's just.
Listen, man, to each his own. The stupid stuff I do regarding basketball, you would think is really weird. And so I'm not going to sit in judgment of somebody who drives to be first in line. But going back to that list, you were on a roll. Picnic permit, wedding, birth, murder.
Murder. Yeah, sorry.
Murder is the first murder of the year. And so what's interesting, and we are gonna take a deep dive with Andy on this, like the first arrest for gun violation of the law. And you're right, it's an attempt by the city of Chicago to say they're on top of things. And
yeah, it was interesting, but you wonder what the officers. I was kind of thinking to myself before I came in here, I'm like, do you think the officers just kind of wrote down the time? But like, why would they? Were they doing it intentionally, or were they just not thinking? Like they just wrote the report at 12:01. I'm just trying to like
decipher
think,
it.
Why? But anyway, Andy will probably tell you like more and how he dug into the story and how he got like how he even like found out about the story, because it is a pretty interesting case.
Andy Grimm, of course, is also our expert on all things Jussie Smollett. So I will not ask Rummana any Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, there
questions.
hasn't really been any Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, good. It's been like a year.
But I did.
Going on a long time.
When I went to, I saw a trailer for one of those Marvel movies.
Yeah.
With Margot Robbie. I forgot what that was called, but Jussie Smollett's sister's in it. And I was telling Mick, I'm like, that's Jussie Smollett's sister, right? Because she was a very popular child star
Is her
in the
last
90s.
name Smollett? Oh. She didn't change the name. All right, now we come to
It's like a hyphenated name now. But when she was little, she was like in Eve's Bayou and a lot of shows.
Oh, all right. I did not know any of this.
Are you guys about to do recommendations?
Yes, we are.
All right, before we do that, Brianna weighed in on the YouTube live stream chat. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Kyle. Kyle, man, you're on fire today. Kyle weighed in the live stream chat. He wants to talk about Balago. He says, if Trump pardons Balago, doesn't that take all of the wind out of the sails about the nefariousness of Chicago politics?
Yes, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I say,
Ben did mention that.
yeah, but I remember I took great delight when Donald Trump started championing Rod Blagojevich's case in the midst of 2018. It completely undercut Bruce Rauner's central argument against J.B. Pritzker, which is that Pritzker, there's those. Remember the Tribune on the Blago tape? Somehow or other, the Tribune got a hold of the tapes and they just put them out there, and to make Pritzker look as bad as they possibly could. And Rauner was outraged, the Blago tapes. And then all of a sudden, Trump, the head of the Republican Party, the man that Republicans love, are saying that. Completely undercutting it by saying that Balago is the victim of federal overreach. And boy, cut off Rauner at the knees. I loved it. So you're absolutely correct. Sometimes there is overreach by federal prosecutors, and sometimes there are innocent victims who get thrown into prison. I'm not saying that Balago is one of them, but
Yeah.
Romano, you cover the criminal
Yeah,
courts
well,
building.
I did a lot of cases where wrongful convictions, or turned out that a lot of men were. We know about John Burge, and a lot of people were forced into confessing. So there's been a lot of wrongful convictions in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've
So-
covered a lot of the post-trial.
And Jay Marie says, Journey is the most famous Smollett.
Yeah,
Journey is
Journey.
Jesse Smollett's.
yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Sister.
Oh, I
You,
did not know
if you
that.
saw her,
I would
you would
recognize her.
recognize her
Okay.
if you watch, because you watch
you-
a lot of movies like I do.
Yeah.
And I knew who she was. She was a really cute kid.
When you
So
said
nice.
Journey, I thought the band Journey.
No, that-
I know. When I read it,
Journey.
I
It might
thought
be
that too.
Gurney or
Yeah,
Journey. I don't know.
Journey. I'm like, Journey? I know them. They have a couple songs.
Name one.
Don't Stop Believing.
Okay,
Nice.
that was the one I could name,
Faithfully?
and now that's it. The only one I know is "Don't Stop Believing." Oh no, when the nights go down.
What is it called?
In the night.
Lights.
Oh, it's lights. It's lights in the city.
I think it's called Lights.
There you go.
okay.
I don't
Now,
know.
did you know that?
Sherry?
Journey's
Or
founding,
that must have been that was a solo Steve Perry.
Journey's founding members are from Santana Band.
I did not know that.
Did not know that. All right, now let's move on to
When
Romano.
the
have a-
lights go down.
Yeah, okay, that's
Oh.
the one song I know. I'm not a fan of Journey. I just know that Journey existed when the White Sox won in 25.
Yes, I saw Steve Perry live singing it at the rally.
The rally. Yeah, it was a
He
big-
looked his voice was shot at that point. But they have a new lead singer, right? He's like from the Philippines, and he sounds just like Steve Perry. That's what I heard.
I
but
didn't know any of
wow.
that. Man, the stuff you
Get
know.
lost, Perry.
I know a lot. I'm sure. No, but he was good. It was cool seeing
yeah.
him.
Uh,
Even I used to pretend that Journey were, something that I want to admit I liked. But I do like Journey, some of their songs. 'Cause it
That's
reminds me of
okay.
being
Admit
good.
it.
No,
You-
it's one of those things where you don't want to admit.
Last year, in one of the confessions that Romano
Guilty
made on the
pleasure,
show,
yeah.
Guilty Pleasure was huge Bob Seger fan. Remember that,
Yeah.
D?
Oh, yeah.
I love
Yeah,
Bob
that's
Seger.
another one that
I
I'm
couldn't
like,
believe
yeah, no,
it,
I
though.
like-
Yeah.
I like him.
I like Bob Seger. All right, you're speaking of things that you like. What are your recommendations for this
Well,
weekend?
this weekend I know I'm going to watch the Golden Globes.
Oh my God, yeah, Gervais.
I just remember.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, I just read about
What's that?
something my husband and my sister-in-law will be very excited about, but Mick's not going to watch with me. The Golden Globes is serving for the first time. They're serving a vegan meal. That's what I read.
Why?
It's just they're saving the
Wait,
planet.
time out. In other
So
words, wait.
it's going to be meatless and no
For
cheese
everybody?
or eggs. Yeah,
So
it's going to be a vegan dinner. You know how they usually have dinner
yeah,
at the
yeah,
Golden
they
Globes?
do have
It's like
dinner,
they have
yeah.
a sit-down dinner
Yeah,
while
and there's
it's going
drinking.
on. Yeah.
and that's why it's the best of all the.
The
award
problem is
show.
it's not really legit, but it's become legitimized.
What, the drinking?
The Golden Globes.
Oh yeah. No, it's completely. It's like.
But
some,
the thing is, it's used as a template for the Oscars, and it shouldn't be, because the people who vote are not necessarily movie reviewers. I can kind of become a member of the Foreign Press Association.
Well,
and you can not bribe them, but you can kind of coax them, like give them presents and
well,
things
this
like that,
now that
so.
you say that, I mean, one of the recommendations I'm going to make is Uncut Gems, which is about a compulsive gambler.
that's what I want to see. That
So if it's a template, then in my old days when I was a compulsive gambler, and I'm a reformed gambler now, but I would study who the Golden Globes gave their awards to, figure out what that says about who the Academy might give the Oscars to, and then make the appropriate bet, if you follow what I just
Yeah,
said.
and, yeah. Were you right usually?
No, I just thought that popped
Oh yeah,
into
yeah.
my mind.
Well,
I could
no,
do
it is.
something
You should
like
do that because so what happened was I don't know if you knew, but before the Golden Globes, nobody really paid attention to them. But then NBC bought the rights to Golden Globes and they started airing it on TV. So it wasn't not taken seriously until like the mid 90s, I think, or the late 90s. And if you really look into who the voting members are, a lot of them aren't necessarily writers or film experts. Bill Zwacker told me, Bill Zwacker is a former entertainment writer at the Sun-Times. He was telling me that one time he met this woman who was a nurse at a hospital, local hospital in Chicago, and she was a member of the foreign press. Yeah, and so she was like, he was just telling me that it was just like anybody could. It's kind of really easy to be, and then a lot of them are members of like there are people who are overseas and they don't have the same standards. So like you could kind of like send them like a gift bag with like designer things, and so you can kind of coax them that way. So now people are saying that so it's become legit because before stars didn't like dress up that much to go to these things, and now it's like I watch it like the Oscars. I mean, I'm gonna DVR it and I'm gonna watch it so I can watch it a little hour later, and
It'll be live, right?
yeah.
Okay, so
It's
I'll be
usually
watching
3
it live.
hours.
Yeah, no, I watch it, and I love Ricky Gervais. He's going to be the host, and I'm sure he's going to say some funny things. And so, yes, I forgot that it was on.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter, and then I'm like, oh, we got to watch that. So I thought I'd mention that. Uncut Gems is on the list of movies that Mick and I want to see. But I also want to see Little Women, which I know I didn't talk about, but I do want to see that. A lot of people are saying, I know people have talked about how many times you're going to remake this movie because the last one was pretty recent in the 90s. I guess the 90s aren't recent anymore, but I heard this version was very good, and I do want to see it, and I do want to see Bombshell, even though I have issues with Fox News. I just want to see it. I heard everybody does a good job in that film.
Well, I've already seen Bombshell, and I've already seen Uncut Gems, and I plan to see Little Women. Bombshell, I urge people to check it out. It's not that it's a great movie. It's not a great movie. But there's revelations about the culture at Fox News.
But I've read a lot about that.
You've read about that, yeah. So I guess you could just read about it instead of seeing the movie. But it's, wow. It's a very toxic work environment where women were like sexual playthings and were encouraged to play that role. And that's how they advanced throughout the corporate. So I don't know if it's still that way. But
I don't even know that was John Lithgow playing Roger
Ailes. Yes, he does a great job.
And Charlize Theron looks just like
Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, yeah. I was gonna say Kelly, but
yeah. Bombshell is really worth watching.
What's your recommendation?
Well, I'm telling you, Uncut Gems. I don't know if it's for everybody. It's
some people said it was just yelling.
There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of
swear words,
running, swear words. I was obsessed with it. I was into it from the start to the finish. Adam Sandler is great. There's a lot of issues raised in that movie that I haven't seen in many mainstream movies. The relationships between Jews and blacks is a big part of that movie. Kevin Garnett is sensational.
I heard he was really good.
Yeah, and Lakeith
he was
Stanfield.
a basketball player, right?
Yes, he plays himself.
Mick was like, "Do you know who that is?" I'm like, "No."
Well, he plays himself. He plays Kevin Garnett. So I'm a little hesitant to make recommendations anymore because I realize that so many of the movies that I love, other people don't love. But
we agreed on Booksmart. We both didn't like that.
Yeah, Booksmart sucked. And like I'm not really feeling. I told you this already. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I saw year 3 of it. I'm like not feeling that.
I started
anymore.
it, but you told me you loved it.
I love. Yeah, I did love LOVE.
A lot of my friends were raving about it, and finally, I'm like, I asked my sister-in-law for her Amazon Prime account video.
Don't admit that on the air. For goodness sake. Here they come.
That's very.
Jeff Bezos right there.
I
at
don't
the
know
door.
how common it is. I know, like I was explaining to my husband Mick, I'm like, everybody that's Indian, we all do that. We all share passwords. Like,
it's not just Indians. I can tell you that right now.
No, but he thinks it's weird. I'm like, it's not that weird. Like, everybody shares passwords.
No.
we all give it to our friends halfway around the world.
And somehow or other, Amazon is still doing well.
All these companies are doing well.
The other scam is how much they charge you to download a movie that's like not the current movie. So that's a whole other scam.
Yeah.
Anyway, Romano's saying thank you so much.
Thank
Another Romano rundown every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show.
We're going to look at getting those T-shirts.
I know.
We're putting that on the top of the list for 2020 goals.
Use a good picture of me. That's
Chris
all I ask.
Fusco, I hope you're listening. We need those Romana T-shirts. People are asking for them. May Whiteside is on deck. We're going to bring her on when we return.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hey, everybody. What you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Dennis here, producer of the show. You know, me, Dennis. All right, our guests are here, the Heartland Mamas. I got to run outside and grab the Heartland Mamas, all right? They're fantastic guests, and it's not that cold outside, but I don't want to keep them out there waiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run down and grab them. In the meantime, I'm going to play just a little bit, a little sample, if you will, of this weekend's Benny J bonus interview. Ben talked one-on-one with the ace attorney himself. Yes, he's back. It's Jim Coogan, the legal eagle, attorney at law. It's one of our weekend bonus interviews. I'll play just a bit of it. I'm going to grab Heidi and Murray, the Heartland Mamas. When we get them up here in the studio and get settled, we'll stop the interview. Then I'll tell everybody where to find the rest of it. So hang tight. Here's Jim Coogan. This Ben Joravsky Show, Benny J bonus interview is brought to you in part by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, take it away.
Bonus time on the Ben Joravsky Show as I speak. It's Thursday, January 2nd, 2020. Man, that's taken some practice. 2020 in the year 2020. But of course, you're listening to this anytime. It's a podcast.
It could be the year 2025.
It could be the year 2525.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Get your head around that one. Yeah. And marijuana is legal, so to help you get through it. All right. And my guest, as I always do, I ask my distinguished guest to introduce himself or herself, in this case, himself. Introduce yourself.
Trial lawyer and managing partner of Dwyer and Coogan, Jim Coogan.
And Jim Coogan, as everybody knows, is a regular guest on the Ben Joravsky Show. We've called this "How Is This Legal?" That's the name of it. What was that?
Prison bars.
Oh, okay. We should copyright that, Jim. How is this legal? And with the slamming of the prison bars. So, Jim, some of these, I have these 4 names that I want to run past you, or 3 names. And one of them is new, and 2 are sort of ongoing themes, represent ongoing themes. And the names are Alex Jones, William Barr, and Michael Horowitz. Each represent a different segment of our legal system, and some of the problems and struggles within trying to make sense, for a layman to make sense of what is legal and what is not legal. Let's start with Alex Jones before we go to William Barr. It's one of our favorite topics, William Barr and Michael Horowitz, who is the Inspector General for the Justice Department. Let's start with Alex Jones, the notorious talk show host and podcast host. Does he have a podcast, D? Is it a podcast technically, or is it
It's a
cable?
radio show.
Radio show. Alex Jones has been sued by parents of children who were slaughtered in Sandy Hook back in 2012. And that case has been dragging on for quite a while. And I share your mini obsession with this case and the legal issues it raises. And I'll just start by repeating something that you said before we went on mic. I've spent my whole life as a journalist, and I'm very concerned about how bullies use libel law to intimidate journalists into silence. So I'm very cautious about using a libel as a tool to silence dissent and silence legitimate discussion and debate. On the other hand, what Alex Jones did crossed all borders and standards, destroyed all standards of decency, where he said, essentially promoted the view that there was no slaughter at Sandy Hook, that it was made up by the deep state in order to get motivate government into passing laws that would restrict the right to bear arms. That essentially was his argument that he was using. So let's break it down. Talk a little bit about the reaction, the lawsuit itself that the parents filed.
First of all, what a merry way to say Happy New Year than to be talking about
Happy New
InfoWars
Year, yeah.
and Alex Jones.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Alex Jones, he must have gone to the same gibberish school as what's the congressman from Georgia who's been railroading all these debates. I can see his face now with the glasses. Anyway, he's got an amazing ability to just say words and kind of run through crazy conspiracy. They just come off of his tongue as if it's like the most natural thing in the world. So this was a perfect opportunity. One of the most high-profile mass shootings in American history. I mean, at this point, and I don't know if there's.
All right, our guests are here. And we're ready to start hour number 2. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for sponsoring this program. Unions like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. If you were enjoying that interview with Jim Coogan, you can download that interview this weekend at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites or wherever else you download your favorite podcast. It'll be available Saturday morning by 5 a.m. Hour number 2, let's go. Friday, January 3rd, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we welcome May Whiteside, and it's the return of the Heartland Mamas, Heidi Henry and Murray Briel. And now your host, once again, no, not a Heartland Mama. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
The Heartland Mamas are here, but before the Heartland Mamas come on, we got May Whiteside. May Whiteside. She's not a Heartland Mama either, but before the show is over, maybe they will ask you to join. May, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
And May is the chairwoman of Flourish. And before we get into what Flourish is, it's got a very important mission that would be beneficial. I'm going to start by saying this to my beloved Democratic Party. May I make no bones about this. I want the Democrats to take control of the Senate in the next year, the U.S. Senate. I want the Democrats to take control of the White House in the next year. I want a little sanity brought to this country because this country has lost its freaking mind in the age of Donald John Trump. And I think you're onto something as to how the Democrats may accomplish that goal. And that's what Flourish is all about, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So, but before we do that, talk about Flourish. Talk a little bit about May Whiteside. What a compelling story you have. You're political, but you're not a politician.
Correct. I'm a spectator, and I care about the civic process. So about me, I was born and raised in Chicago. I'm from the low end, what we call in the Bronzeville area. And I grew up in both the Dearborn Homes and Prairie, across from Prairie Shores was Prairie Courts in the 14 stories. And I remember as a kid, watching my mom write letters to Mayor Jane Byrne talking about the deplorable conditions in our apartment and in our community, and none of the letters got returned. So that was like my first foray into being civically engaged, like contacting your local mayor. From there, my mom was a civil rights activist. She would join marches about apartheid in South Africa. So as a kid, I had an actual chance to sit on the front lines of civic engagement. As when I was 14, my mom brought me down to the Rotunda, and I see you have the bust of Harold Washington right here. My mom brought me to his when he was lying in state, and I never forgot that. But all in between time, what my mom did, what was so important in Black radio in the 80s, was Lou Palmer's Notebook. And from there, I got, as a kid, a sense of Black political thought, Black engagement, and in terms of participation, what does that look like? And my mom didn't think that I paid attention to any of this. I'm just a kid playing with dolls that I've had, for years and years, and she didn't think that I would actually pick this up, and I actually did. As time went on, of course, being on public aid, we ended up living in homeless shelters for about 10 years. And I am so hoping that Sister Therese is watching, because I had even though our situation was really bleak, as a civil rights activist, you don't make any money. That's just what it was then. But, I was raised by two incredibly women, Sister Connie and Sister Therese, two white Catholic, one was Republican, that I watched grow up
in
her household. Yes, she was.
So wait, a Republican Catholic nun?
A Republican Catholic cigar smoking nun.
Whoa, that's a lot in one sentence there. The cigar smoking came out of nowhere.
She wore an eye patch, and she was one of the strong women that I saw as a kid, along with my mother.
How were you raised in their house? Was this foster situation?
As a homeless shelter, we would.
Homeless shelter. Okay.
Yeah, we would live there, and we were a part of the wave of women, Black women and children, that suddenly found ourselves homeless and on the streets.
In the 80s.
In the 80s, that was a very strong point in Chicago. So you can imagine I'm influenced by all these things, but I'm still a kid. I'm still a nerd. I like science. I like playing with the periodic chart. All those things, like with clay, and just figuring out what kind of material it was, and just wanting to like learn more about science. So school trips always landed me in the Museum of Science and Industry, and I learned about the industry. I learned about civil engineering and bridges and rail, because, Museum of Science and Industry has that rail exhibit. So I learned all about aviation and rail and all those things, and it influenced me to be, a civil engineer like I am today.
So somehow or other, from this tumultuous childhood, you got it together. Graduate high school, Kenwood High School.
Yes, Kenwood Academy. I'm a Bronco. Go Broncos.
You got the Broncos out there. We have a lot of Kenwood people coming through this studio.
Go Broncos.
Sam Holloway, frequent guest on the show, is a Kenwood grad as well.
That's correct.
Thank you, Robert Mueller. And and you went to college and you became an engineer.
Yep, I graduated from Illinois Institute of Technology with a civil engineering degree. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Chicago.
All right. So
Yep.
how did you're an engineer. Now, I don't want to deal in social stereotypes.
Yes.
But I'm not feeling that engineers really get involved in progressive politics.
They
If
don't.
they get involved in politics at all.
Yeah.
They're engineers.
We're nerds.
Yeah, nerds. Okay. We could be a nerd and still get involved in progressive politics. Look at me. But so how was it that you got involved in politics?
Well, it stems from just my experiences growing up. Those things from your childhood, they shape you into who you are today. I never thought about running for office. I never really took that piece seriously, but I knew that from a civic engagement standpoint, there were so many things that I saw growing up in my community that Black women were struggling to try to get and just couldn't get that. And so as I became a business owner, there are still challenges, even being a Black female in business in the state, and it just seemed as though those things are marrying each other. Just the upfront civic engagement, sharing our experiences, hoping that it'll shape policy when it comes to women contracting, and it's just, you really can't. All the gains that was made, and I'll be honest, Harold Washington actually was the mayor that created the minority and women ordinance that we have today, and a lot of women and minority businesses in this state hold those certifications, particularly within the city of Chicago, because of the work that Mayor Harold Washington had done procurement-wise. So when I think about all the activism that my mom did, watching a Black woman who, fought for clean conditions in public housing and fought for civil rights just for Black people, and then my now having a business to where, there's still things that Black women face in business, those things about policy and activism, we can't just sit back and say, oh, everything is great. We have to, that's how we evolve as a state. That's how we evolve as a country, and just being civically engaged.
You have to be proactive.
You have to be proactive.
All right, so tell people what Flourish is.
So Flourish is a labor of love. It is a political action committee that supports Black women running for office, women of color. It is a response, I would say, to the need for fundraising. What I'm finding is women aren't, regardless of nationality, we struggle with asking. We need help. We need money. We need volunteers. We need campaign managers and strategists and field coordinators. We struggle asking. So what Flourish does is take that stress away from saying, "Oh, you don't have to do this alone. We're here to support your idea." And if we think it's a good idea, you pass our questionnaire, you respond to our questionnaire, and we support you, whether it's social media marketing, cash, which is really what people need to pay these staffers, lights, got to keep the gas on, you got to keep the notepads and folders for your field people to really work and walk, phone banking, you got to pay for phone systems, internet. Those are the small things that I think Flourish can really help with. We were featured in Watch the Yard. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority, and we were featured in Watch the Yard about our support of women running for office.
So what if two women are running against each other? How do you decide which women you're going to support?
Well, it's the issues that we create. So we have a list of issues that it's evolving, but some of our issues that we support women running on is economic empowerment. The biggest thing with women is, there's that pay gap. and Black women have a wider pay gap. That is how do you support us? When you go into office, this is an issue that we have for our PAC that we're supporting. Will you be able to go in and defend and support women of color? Other is maternal issues. I myself, had a health scare when I delivered my son. And there's women and Black women, there's a mortality rate when it comes to delivering. You see all these stories about women of color giving birth and then they're not making it out of the delivery room. Mm-hmm. Another issue is breast cancer awareness and funding. There has to be, I believe in my heart there will be a cure. And Black women face higher rates of breast cancer deaths than other women. And so the list just goes kind of like in that order. And we want to make sure that the candidate who Flourish supports will take those issues with them into the office and help craft policy.
All right, now let me throw you in the middle of a question I'm probably going to ask the Heartland Mamas, who are my next guests. So get ready, Heartland Mamas. So we are now in probably month 6 of the Democratic primary.
Yes.
Where the Democrats are trying to figure out who's the best person to send into battle against Donald John Trump. There are no Black women in the race anymore. Kamala Harris dropped out. And this is a conversation we've been having on this show a lot. Why, in your humble opinion, I'll ask you the question, do you think that there are no Black women in the presidential race? And how many women are currently in the race? I'm trying to think of Amy Klobuchar.
Amy, Warren.
Warren, too.
Yeah.
And because I don't think Tulsi is involved anymore, realistically.
Or Marianne, she dropped her whole staff.
She dropped her whole staff.
Yeah.
So let's just not kid anybody.
Yeah.
So what are some of the obstacles?
I think one of the how can I narrow it down? We're held to a different standard. We're asked to pass a test that others don't have to pass. Mm-hmm. We have to be, this figure that this just, gonna get it done, and but our backgrounds are held to us to a higher standard than others. I mean, it could be 8 prosecutors on the stand, but we'll be picked out. It's just, it's not right, but it happens. We have fundraising issues too. We have to be able to understand the Democratic Party, that you must have some women of color in this race and support it. We have to feel like we're supported by our party. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much money she was able to get. Kamala. Mm-hmm. But, the last Black woman that ran for president was Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbossed. She faced those struggles in 1972. So
you have to go back to. I'm trying to think.
We have
I'm
to go
older
back
than you
to
are.
that.
Let me go. I'm going to go every single. I think you're right.
Yeah.
76. No.
And then Jesse
80,
Jackson, he tried it in 1983.
No, 84 and 88.
84, yeah.
84
oh
and
my
88.
God, I was like 9 years old.
I voted
I'm
for
telling
her.
my age. Wait, you did roll it back. You erase that.
Sure. She was unborn in 1983.
I was unborn when Shirley Chisholm.
Well, you're definitely unborn when Shirley Chisholm ran in 72.
Yeah. We're held to a different standard. We're
Mm-hmm.
held to a different standard. And most oftentimes we have to be in a process of defending ourselves so much more than the actual issues that we're defending.
Yeah. Well, I know that this was a big issue in 2019, I want to say. I talked a lot about this. In Alabama, Roy Moore, who was pretty nut job, prowling the malls looking for young girls. The Republican Party decided that would be their best candidate to run for Senate. They thought that made him qualified.
Yeah.
Much like they think Donald John Trump. I think there's 17 or 18, don't quote me on this one, accusations against Donald Trump were dealing with sexual harassment and up to rape, but they think he's most qualified to be their president. So that's where the Republican Party is. The only thing that saved the country from the embarrassment of having Roy Moore as a U.S. senator
was Black women.
Were Black women in Alabama.
Yeah, we're the most. When I would say as a group, we're heavily civically engaged, and when you think about the moral fiber, we tend to listen to that and act on that,
Mm-hmm.
like make it right. We're the make it right women, and I will say just from an engagement standpoint, from an issue defending standpoint, we are always there. We've shouldered our families since slavery. I mean, I would say that. I would go all the way back. But we're responding and we're active. And then you'll see more groups that are stepping up, powered by women of color, supporting women too. And that's adding to the conversation. But the Democratic Party hasn't gotten to where it is without Black women. That's just what it is.
Well, I go one step further and be really specific.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, the Democrats can't take back the Senate and can't take back the White House without a strong turnout from the Black community.
That is true.
And it's just no way around that. And furthermore, you cannot become the Democratic nominee to run against Donald John Trump without support from the Black community. I think that Mayor Pete in South Bend is realizing this.
Yeah.
You could be, everybody, all the like rich donors can love you and throw money at you, but if you're not going to get rank and file Black voters to support you, you're not going to win the primary. You're not going to win the nomination.
That's true. And we have to believe that you're going to support us when you get in office. Most oftentimes we have candidates come to the Black community and they have these roundtable discussions. They'll meet with us. They'll talk to us. We'll tell you what's exactly, giving you the pulse on the street, what's exactly happening to us. But then once that person gets into the office, they close the door. And now you have to pry it open with like white knuckles to try to, like, what happened to that dialogue? It ended when you got in office. And we have to always try to safeguard ourselves and find candidates that will listen. But if you have a candidate with a track record that's already having issues, then we're going to look at that and go, oh, you're an unstable candidate. We don't want to back you.
Now, as the chairwoman of this PAC, are you not endorsing anybody for president? Are you staying out of that one?
I personally,
personally, nothing to do with the PAC.
Okay, so me personally,
May Whiteside.
I haven't decided on a candidate yet. Okay. But in terms of the PAC, we'll send a survey out and we'll ask them what they think.
Oh, I'm really curious what the results of that. Yeah, we have to bring you back.
We'll talk about that and we'll ask them the reasons why. I haven't personally bought on to the Warren campaign. I haven't bought on to Biden. I haven't bought on to Bloomberg yet. I haven't bought on to. I want to see what happens. It's a crowded field, and I want to get down to after the second debate who's going to be left.
Next debate. All right. Now I have to say we have the Heartland Mamas on deck, and one of the things we've been promoting, discussing. Our Bernie bros, the Heartland Mamas. Heidi Henry's been waiting eagerly to come on and talk about you, because the one candidate you didn't mention when you were running down the list is Bernie Sanders. And you have to know, you're kind of like in Bernie country. We're right here in this little room. Everybody's like a Bernie supporter in this room.
And I don't get it.
Wow. So now,
I don't want to get in trouble with it.
Right here, he's crying. He loves Bernie
I'm
over
like,
there.
why are people obsessed with this guy?
I
haven't figured it out. Okay.
I love Bernie.
Throw the box at me. I just haven't figured out the obsession.
All right. Can I try to help you with it?
Please help me with
that.
If
I may.
I don't get it.
And Heartland Mamas, this is, thank you, the water. They're giving me water.
I'm going to wear the water.
Bernie Sanders, I'm doing this right off the top of my head. Bernie Sanders has been championing the issues that supposedly matter most to Democrats since the 60s. The winds of public opinion are always blowing this way and that way in this country.
Yeah.
And Democrats generally, my beloved Democratic Party, because I've been a Democrat my whole life. Most Democrats, they're like trying to figure out which way is the wind blowing, and I'm going to go there because that'll get me that little moment, that advantage I need. That's like how Rahm thinks. That's how Barack Obama thinks. That's how Bill Clinton thinks. That's how Hillary Clinton thinks. Bernie's like, These are values that I, as a Democrat, believe in. He's not even a Democrat. He's a Democratic socialist. And I'm going to stick with him. And you know what? It seems as though the country has kind of moved to Bernie. So Bernie hasn't had to move to the right. You know what I'm saying? Like Clinton and Obama, they moved to the right.
Yeah.
So
they're moving with him.
That's why I like Bernie.
I just haven't really, I don't know what it is. I just haven't. there's things about him I just don't like. What I can't put my finger on it, but he's not my candidate. Maybe we'll wait it out and see. Maybe he'll win me over, but
You haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen the light. I don't know. I don't understand his birdie craze, but I haven't seen it yet.
So I presume then you were for Hillary in 2016.
I did. I was actually a campaign fellow. I decided to take some time off and go and see what it's like working in a presidential campaign. It was interesting. We were well trained. They had us all meet in Madison, Wisconsin, and we were all trained to, really knock the doors and ask the Democrats to come out and support. What was very disappointing, though, with that, and it was a sad time in our history, but the gay nightclub in Florida got shot up. She couldn't make it to Milwaukee, but then she never made it to Milwaukee. And I remember the last...
She being Hillary Clinton.
Being Hillary. And on the way home from us, we were all of us troops were pulling out of Wisconsin. The Trump signs were all along 94. And I know you've all seen that. It was very quiet. We didn't see many Trump signs. It was a city that, Kenosha didn't really have too many of the Trump signs, but on the way out, oh gosh, it was the expressways were dotted with Trump, and he just took it.
So that's when you had a sense that
it was over with.
Hillary had dropped the ball in Wisconsin.
The campaign manager dropped the ball.
Yeah.
The campaign manager dropped that ball. It was like thunder when you heard it.
Yeah. Wow.
All of the issues that we said that happened on the campaign trail, we expressed it, and it seemed to just go nowhere. And we were just kind of like on our own, just for the love of Hillary, knocking on doors and trying to get Democrats to sign on. But, Trump took that state.
Yes, he did. He took that state.
And the country.
and with Michigan and Pennsylvania, there went the country. But as I always do, I like to point out that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote.
She did.
And so politics, presidential elections are the only contest, May Whiteside, in which the loser wins. Think about that. My beloved Chicago Bulls would have gotten credit for winning last night's game had we decided basketball games the way we decide presidential elections. Only freaking contest in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost, therefore I get to win. And this gets me mad. The Democrats accept this.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben, the founding fathers created it. Well, they also created slavery. We going to keep that around forever?
Yeah, they definitely created that.
Ben, Anyway, before I let you go, tell folks about Nominate a Black Woman.
So one of the activities of Flourish PAC, besides the Illinois Black Campaign Academy, which had debuted in Chicago, then Rockford, then Chicago Heights, which is key to increasing the number of African Americans for key roles on campaigns. What the Nominate a Black Woman to Watch in Illinois politics does is highlight the unsung hero in campaigns. We're talking the super volunteers, the super volunteers, the volunteer field coordinators, Black women who and seen on campaigns working for the love of democracy, and they haven't asked for a dime in return. One of my favorites is she'll kill me, but Josephine Hamilton Perry, I want to tell you, if this is the camera to look at, I saw you at the DNC. I saw you support Kamala Harris. I saw you bring out your sorority sisters to vote for Democrats. I saw you on the campaign trail, despite aches, pains, family setbacks. You showed up for the Democratic Party. That's a party builder. So that's one of the categories in this Nominate a Black Woman to Watch. It's kind of designated for. There are other women who's been nominated. Letisa Wallace, I'm kind of spilling the beans a little bit, but Letisa Wallace has been nominated. Candace Costello, Hope Martin, Cleopatra Watson, she's been nominated. I'm telling you this. Tanya Watkins, all these movement sisters, all these Black women who have spent their time and their energy, but they're just not getting the recognition. And I'm thinking the Nominate a Black Woman is a ceremony that it would turn into a ceremony that highlights Black women who have shown up time and time for the Democratic Party, whether money, in person, or just petition or just sharing on their social networks for the Democratic Party and for candidates that they care about. And those women haven't seen the recognition I think that they deserve.
All right, well, we're definitely going to bring you back, May Whiteside. I'm just going to let a little secret out. May was like, I don't know, I get nervous, man, she's killing it. She's got the mic, she's talking directly to the camera. She's about ready to start singing a song. She's going to do her Whoopi Goldberg impression in a little while. But we're definitely going to bring you back to see who actually, is it going to be like one woman selected or a number of
It's
them?
going to be a number of women.
All right.
That would be
Half of them have been guests on this show, by the way. I just want to say. So thank you, May Whiteside, for coming in. By the way, is there a website people should know about? Go
to www.flourishpac.org. On the events page, you can directly go there. Or if you find my social media, May Whiteside, you can click the link or go to Flourish Pac. We're on Twitter and nominate. Okay. Even elected officials can nominate people.
And
that
May
work
is spelled M-A-E.
M-A-E.
Whiteside. Very good. May Whiteside, thank you very much. The Heartland Mamas, we've been promising them all day. They're revved up and they're ready to go. May, thank you very much. We're going to bring the Heartland Mamas on when we return.
Thank you so much.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Well, yesterday was quite a day. I really lost sleep last night after watching over and over again the testimony of the Attorney General of the United States. How sad it is. How sad it is for us to see the top law enforcement officer in our country misrepresenting, withholding the truth from the Congress of the United States. I think it's really time that as I watched him and kept saying, what could possibly be motivating the Attorney General of the United States to disrespect the Constitution of the United States, the separation of powers, the right of Congress to know? What possible motivation could the Attorney General of the United States have to dishonor the office that he holds by writing there for the whole world to see, to misrepresent the facts to the Congress of the United States?
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters. Hey, the commercial break's over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
We've been talking about the Heartland Mamas coming on the show. Heidi Henry,
Heartland Mamas.
Murray Briel.
Heartland Mamas.
And the Mamas are in the house. Welcome back, Mamas.
Thank you for having us.
Man, I know you guys drive so far from the, what do I always call it? The boonies?
You call it the boonies.
Oh, do I get in
Don't
trouble?
offend our guests.
We
They call it the boonies.
No, we call it the edge of the Great Red Divide.
Sounds
Whoa.
way better than boonies.
Oh, sounds like something that I would have read about on Legal Weed Day. Go ahead, D. The Red Divide. You got an update before we bring the Mamas on?
Absolutely, I do. People, it is time for a segment that we have not done on this program in quite some time. It's a segment where we keep tabs on our elected officials by taking a quick look at their Twitter page.
Oh.
Yes.
Heidi, you're going to dig
Yes,
this. All right.
it's the 2020 debut of a segment that we like to call Hail to the Tweet. Cue the ukulele. No, know that has not been playing the ukulele, guys. For all those listening on the download. All right, so we got 2 tweets here. One is from our newly elected, well, I say newly elected, but I mean, it was a while ago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. All right, I got to pull it up on my phone here. Hang tight. Oh, boy. Embarrassing. I was grabbing guests and getting water and coffee. All right, that's a very nice song, though, right? Mm-hmm. All right, here's the tweet from Lori Lightfoot. This was, I believe, this was a few hours ago. Lightfoot tweet, dope, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you prefer to call it. Please observe basic rules and regulations to ensure safe, equitable, and responsible use. # Illinois Cannabis.
Okay.
And for more info, visit chicago.gov/cannabis.
Oh, okay. So it's an informational tweet.
A very informational tweet.
She did not mention reefer.
No, she did not mention reefer. Well, she didn't. Yeah, only you call it that.
No, he's not the only one.
Really?
Yeah, it's a generational thing, right, Heidi?
Yeah,
Can
we're
I
about the same
interject
age.
here the difference between the mayor of Chicago and our beloved lieutenant governor? Is our lieutenant governor was one of the first people in line to purchase cannabis on legalization day. And the way she did it was to destigmatize. That's amazing.
And that by the way, Murray, that is a great point. I had a field day yesterday with the jubilation and the joy of legal reefer, because I think it's really signifies the end of the war on drugs, our first step toward the end of the war on drugs. But the Tribune had this story that was like your Uncle Harry wrote it. You know, what do you tell your children about legal? And Murray, I'm thinking there's like 1,000 things more difficult to explain to a child, like murder and rape
World
and
War III.
slavery.
World War III.
World War III happening, like
Right
troops
now.
going to the
Yesterday.
Middle East. But no, how do you explain that you can buy marijuana? I'm like, where's
It's
George
the same way
Carlin
you
when we need
explain that
him?
you can go to a strip club, that you can buy alcohol. It's the same
Gambling.
damn thing.
Gambling, yeah.
I'll tell you, I have taught my children, and I have 17, almost 15, and 11, and I've explained to them what it is, what it does, why, and they're very well
Demonstrated.
versed. But yeah.
By the way, when you said that, when you started off, and I have 17, I'm like, you had 17 kids?
Hell no. Three boys.
So that's what Mayor Lightfoot.
okay.
That's Mayor Lightfoot and what she's up to.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Now on to the Illinois governor.
I'm not a perfect person.
All right, J.B. Pritzker tweeted this a day ago. He says, we made great strides in 2019 to put Illinois back on the side of working families. Today, minimum wage workers get their first raise in a decade, and hundreds of laws take effect that move our state forward. Here's to a joyous and prosperous 2020 for all Illinoisans.
All right, Heidi Henry, I'm going to put it to you. You ran on the ticket with J.B. Pritzker back in 2018. You were running in Senate District 38 against
good.
Sue Rezin. I know, I'm unbelievable. And did very well, in my humble opinion, for a liberal, lefty Democrat running
did
in red
amazing.
country. 41% of the vote. I always go up on my estimations. Are you pleased so far with Governor Pritzker's reign in Illinois?
I think it's a progressive Democrat's dream come true. So many things. The first question I ever asked him when it was before I was a candidate, when he was a candidate, brand new candidate, was about the fight for 15, because it's not realistic to pay people less than $10 an hour, to pay them so little and expect them to survive. And he came back with such a dissertation on poverty. I was in that moment because, you know, who was our downstate guy?
Robert.
Bob Diber?
Bob Diber. I was a Bob Diber fan until JB gave me that answer, and then it was like, that's it.
I'm so sorry.
Wait, which part? That she
Was a
would-
Bob Diber
oh.
fan, but we converted her. So
Well,
we're
Dennis
good.
voted for Diber. He's
Damn
proud
right
of
I
it.
did.
We got to get down to business.
There we go. There's Diber, 618.
The only podcast with a Bob Diber audio drop.
Yeah, that's correct. I voted for Dan Biss, but
Yeah.
I'm not completely proud of that. I love Leticia Wallace. She's guesting the show.
Yep.
But I don't know. I kind of wish I voted for Bob Diber. I always say this. Because he's really a New Deal Democrat in red. And she's very similar to you, Heidi Henry.
Yeah.
He's a New Deal Democrat
Right.
running in red country, in Trump country. And I got a lot of respect for people like that.
He was super accessible, so he was out at a lot of our events out in the central part of the state, and I got to know him a little bit, and I really respected him. And I come from a long line of educators, so he appealed to that part of my ideology.
All right, before we take the deep dive into the Bernie Bros issue that we've been promoting all week long.
Don't hate.
Don't hate. Marie, explain why we call you the Heartland Mamas. It's not something I invented. Go ahead.
We are the Heartland Mamas because Heidi and I got to know each other through the campaign trail and the political season several years back. And after those pursuits ended, we were really frustrated at how, no offense, guys, the male attitudes have taken and driven our country for the last 250 years. Everything from our foundation has been designed by male brain. And we're like, dang it, it's time for more women. And then we talked about how being a mama takes care of everything. You have to deal logically, empathetically. You have to deal on multiple levels at the same time. And we're like, dang it, it's time for some mamas. So because we're both red dividers, we decided we are the Heartland Mamas, and that's how we came to be.
What do you mean by red dividers?
Well, we live literally at the edge of the Great Red Divide. There's very little blue between us and California from where she lives in Will County.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's not a lot.
So we call it the Big Red Divide. And when you look at that map, and granted, a lot of that is corn and wheat and soybeans, but there's this big red swath in the middle of the country, and mostly nobody lives there.
And we got frustrated, not only with the lack of female representation, but we got frustrated with the media calling the Heartland Trump country, calling
it isn't,
us equating rural people with lack of intelligence and not knowing why they voted for Trump. And we got really tired of being told what people in the Heartland feel. We're people in the Heartland.
Right.
And we said there's got to be more like us. We met countless on the trail. So that's our whole purpose, is to talk to the Heartland and find out what's really going on.
That was the hard part. Now, Marie's run ended at the primary. Mine continued through to the general. And there was no messaging from our state party for downstate. The thing that they would tell us is if it weren't for Michael Madigan, we wouldn't have, or we would be a right to work state. That does not work downstate. It doesn't work in anything outside of the collar counties. And that's the message you want me to bring out there. No, they want to know, how are you going to make Illinois work for us when we've lost our steel mills, when we've lost our good employment opportunities, when we have huge pollution issues out in our area.
When we have climate change that is affecting our crops and our ability to produce, and the land prices are dropping. How are we supposed to survive?
And there's no messaging from the party, so Marie and I decided to do it.
So what is the messaging as we head into 2020? We're heading a very important election year. What do you think is the message that will win over voters in the Heartland?
Number one is healthcare. We really, as Democrats, have to stick to healthcare, especially with this thing worming its way right now from Texas going to the Supreme Court. We won't just lose the people who got care under Medicaid expansion. We are going to lose people like my son who, without ACA, would not have been able to go back to school, would not have the job he has now, would not be alive right now. So you're losing just about every woman that has a pre-existing condition because of how our plumbing works.
Back before my first child was born, if I was pregnant and I lost my job, the only way to be insured was to go on COBRA. I couldn't pick up my husband's insurance because it was a pre-existing condition, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, and so that's where we're at, and we cannot drop the ball on this. And going into the presidential election, we have to remember that no matter which Democrat we elect as our president, whoever primaries through is only going to be able to sign the legislation that Congress sends them. Now, they can shepherd through their ideals, but that doesn't mean once it goes through the debating process in all the committees and comes to their desk that that's
going to be what they promise,
Right.
or it may be closer to what you wanted with a different candidate in the first place, depending on the Congress.
But we do absolutely know that if we do not take back the Senate, if we do not hold the House, if we reelect DJT, we will be up shit creek.
Even if for somehow he does get reelected, God forbid, we have a chance to take the Senate, and we have to. Our courts have been
manipulated.
We've got 30 years of conservative courts already, not to mention the line going up. We cannot afford to have the Senate, the Republicans
We
in
can't
control
afford
of the Senate.
to keep giving back the rights that we fought for ever since the New Deal went through. And that is not Bernie Sanders' ideology. That is when the Democratic Party worked the best. It's when our country worked the best, when we were building the great society. And we've, as Democrats, given pieces of that away to appeal mostly, I think, to corporate America, forgetting the fact
Capitalism.
of all of the people that live and breathe and work and live and die here that are the backbone of the Democratic Party, and we cannot give another inch. You know, it's that ideology, that coming to the center, which is a very dangerous place to be. We can't step our toes in the center any longer.
All right, now let's stick with the health care.
Yeah.
You hit it on the head, both of you. If Donald John Trump is victorious, what little health care we have through Obamacare, it goes out the window.
Right.
Because, folks, I can't say this enough. As we speak, there is a lawsuit working its way through the courts, probably heading to the Supreme Court, which would torpedo Obamacare, and it is backed. This lawsuit is backed by the Donald John Trump White
Our
House.
Department of Justice, he has put our entire Department of Justice on this case to rip health care away from millions, tens of millions of people.
And why? What is the ultimate goal? That's my question. Besides
Yeah.
destabilization of the democracy that exists, why? I just don't get it.
The why question is a deep dive. I should bring Neil Muhammad in to talk about that.
We love our Neil.
But yeah, but ultimately, I think it's just a carryover, Heidi Marie, from the war on Obama. And
exactly.
that they just hated Obama so much. And Obama gave us this Romney care. It's not even radical health care. But they hate him so much, they want to discredit him.
How dare that half-white man become president? How dare he?
That's why
We're
we pulled
still
out of
dealing with
Iran
that.
deal, because
It was Obama's plan.
right.
It doesn't
It was
matter.
Obama's pinnacle foreign policy achievement that had success.
And
so
healthcare is his
second,
domestic
his domestic.
problem. Yeah.
So when he comes in, what's he want to do? Get
Destroy
rid of it.
And for what? How many people have to die domestically and in foreign lands to prove that Donald Trump hates Barack Obama?
So when you hear, yes, and as I say, folks, he promised Donald John Trump to keep us out of Middle Eastern wars, and we got some troops heading over there right now.
3,500 right now.
3,500. I saw the headline before we went on the air. All right. So when you hear the debate, and I know you've been following it, the debates of the Democratic candidates, and they talk about health care. The last debate, they didn't talk too much about it, but previous debates, they've been talking about it a lot. Is there a message from any of the candidates that you think is particularly potent in your neck of the woods?
Well, having to deal with healthcare, very frontline with my son when he became ill. This was pre-ACA. This was when he would get redlined every year, and my husband and I went $240,000 in debt, saving his life, and paid it all off instead of taking bankruptcy. And being right on that front line, when I listen to everybody's healthcare policy, every single one of them makes sense. Now, would I love to see single payer and Medicare for all? Absolutely. Do I think we're grown up enough to do it right now? I'm not sure.
And the state we're currently in as a nation, in such disarray. We've talked about this, and I think there's two options here. As we move forward, we can go back to the more pulling people in the center and rehealing the country and building foreign bridges again, which we do need to do.
Yeah.
But domestically, we have had such an exposure of all of our weaknesses and failings as a nation. I think it's time for a broad change. I happen to like Andrew Yang a lot. Sorry, he's not. I haven't chosen anybody yet.
Don't
but
apologize.
I am.
He's
I
on
am,
my top 5. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But and I think that the health care, everyone wants health care and needs it, and the more we explain what that entails and the benefits, the more people are coming around to it. And I have this argument with some of the more conservative Democrats out in my area and some of the Republicans, and they are convinced that no one wants it. And all we hear
Wait,
is
time
we
out.
want
They're
it.
convinced that nobody wants.
Nobody wants Medicare for all. Nobody
Somewhere-
wants a social program for it. And everyone we talk to, the average person, the Heartland folks,
Yeah.
they're begging for it.
So in other words, based on what you're reporting right now, the best way for the Democrats to win voters in your area, to get people who voted for Trump in 2016 to vote Democrat, regardless of who the candidate is,
Right.
the best way is to loudly and boldly champion a healthcare for all plan. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Healthcare has to lead the way, because there's a lot of people my age that are approaching that Medicare area, and it's a little ways off. My husband's on Medicare right now, but I'm a few years behind him, and we see that coming up. And I've seen the change from his our policy that we bought through his work for years to Medicare was seamless. He, in a lot of ways, has better care than I have on the very good Blue Cross plan that I have. So people, as they experience it, realize that Medicare for all is not a scary thing. It's really a very seamless thing. The math on how to pay for it is what scares people, because there's so much rhetoric about how it works. I've done the numbers for just about everybody's plan. Luckily, my son's got a degree in economics, so he can help me with the math, because it's not my strong suit. But the math works on all of them. And I think we're all working towards the same goal. It's the speed and rate that we get there and how we pay for it in slightly different areas.
It's also the messaging of how we have talked about this many times, semantics taking
is
back co-opted terms,
Yep.
taking those hot button words out of the issue. And if we can develop a messaging strategy that explains that in a concise, easy soundbite,
15
we will
words
win
or less,
beyond.
9
Well,
words
here's
if you can
something
do it.
I don't understand, and this is the national level of a local conversation I have absolutely all the time. Most of my obsession with my journalistic career has been on local issues. So in the city of Chicago, when it comes to something like hiring nurses in the public schools, all of a sudden our leaders become accountants.
Of
and
course.
they figure it out down to the nickel and the dime. It's going to cost you X, Y, Z. But then when it comes to something like, we're going to have the Olympics in the city of Chicago. Oh, and let's write the check, let the party begin, blah, blah, blah. So when I do that in the national level, I'm
And
just
we
telling you, $768 billion military defense spending budget.
And apparently he's eager to get that in use, isn't he? He's eager to start World War III so we can use all that up, because the war machine is insatiable. And sorry, I'm going to get worked up about that. But, here's the thing. There's always money for that sort of crap. But there's never money for social workers and for counselors and for nurses and for medication and things that we need, that everybody needs. And every time I hear the story about Rom shutting down the mental health clinics, and I remember when that happened, even though I don't live here in the city, and I thought, for God's sake, if those children, if the people that live there cannot have that respite, how do they ever expect to get ahead of violence in this city? How? You can't. That is totally irrational. And not having social workers and nurses in your school systems with the level of the stuff that just comes at these kids, and shooter drills and
I just
violence
had
on the streets.
a conversation with someone running for state senate in Illinois, and he didn't have a grasp of exactly what that entailed, and he was shocked to think that we needed more social workers in our schools. But yet he also said we had to stem the gun violence somehow. And I said, well, when you have 2,000 kids in a school, and we're a fairly good school system,
Will County,
in Plainfield,
yeah.
And when you have 2,000 kids in a school and you have 4 social workers on staff, that's 500 kids per social worker to catch those kids who, I know for a fact in the last 3 months there have been several suicide attempts at that school. And these are kids who are 14, 15 years old, and there's no one there to catch them and help them. How close are we to a shooter?
How many times did you guys have a false lockdown?
We had a lot.
Yeah,
and that triggers these kids, and they have nowhere to go. Their parents are working. Nobody's home when they get home, and they have to sit there and try to work it out in their own brains. For God's sake, give them somebody at school they can turn to.
No, but this goes back to what we started with, Maria. I have to tie it all together. You're talking about the need for social workers and therapists, et cetera, and the whole issue of mental health in our country is someone that people don't want to approach. Really, a lot of people, the stigma, people don't want to admit they go to a therapist, or they need a therapist, or they think they're bigger than a therapist, so they close mental health clinics in the poorest neighborhoods, in crime high neighborhoods, cutting back the amount of mental health clinics. Now we finally legalized reefer. I'm going to tie it all together. And some people take reefer because they got to deal with the madness of the world. And what does Lori Lightfoot do? Well, be responsible. Oh my God, man.
That's why I gotta say I wasn't real happy about that.
Be responsible.
I have to tell you, Ben, Sunday we're recording, we have a canna consultant coming on because we know people are going to self-medicate. It's not just how high can I get, how fast can I get. So we have a canna consultant coming on Sunday. So we'll drop that one Monday morning at 10 a.m. And part of it is people have these questions because they're too embarrassed to go talk to somebody because they have anxiety or depression or whatever. So what strains might help, not that we're medically recommending, but at least giving you a little guidance, you know? So, but God, I just hate it when our politicians take a pious approach to a law that they know that they're going to benefit from.
Which is why I found, our lieutenant governor so amazing. That was a brilliant PR move. The fact that she legitimized it and destigmatized it by doing that. You saw what she got. She got the tiniest microgram of
I was going to say,
edible.
the question is, did she smoke it?
Right.
No, she got an edible.
Yeah,
She got
edible.
5 edibles at the tiniest microgram available. But
she
it was,
eat
I don't know.
I don't know.
But it was
She
still...
could drop it by the show. We could, we could feed it to our guests.
I've heard the dream show Dennis has for you. So.
Heidi,
I know,
you do not
right?
want to hear that show. Okay?
Have you heard it, Marie?
Yeah.
What I want to do is I want to get Ben to take an edible, or probably not smoke it. Take an edible.
I got tincture. We can hook them up.
Tincture, whichever, and then he could do an interview.
Marie-
A Vinny J bonus interview.
Oh my God.
Marie is
That-
always trying to do the same thing to me because she and
She
here's
needs
me.
to just take it down a notch.
I-
A little bit. Sometimes
I
relax.
tell her somebody's always got to be the one able to row the boat, and that's always me.
And you can row the boat when you
In a
have
circle.
cannabis in your system. That's what people don't understand. You can row the damn boat while you're high.
What a great saying. I'm going to steal that, Heidi Henry. You need someone to row the boat, damn it, D. I got to row the freaking boat while you're just sitting right in the bow or the stern, good, smoking a joint, okay? You got to need someone. I got to write that down. Need someone to row boat.
Well, there you go. Just write stuff down. We're not doing anything.
Yeah, hold on. Just all right. Heidi
Doing a
Henry.
show.
There we
Taking
go.
notes.
I got that. All right. You talked about Medicare, healthcare as an issue that could bring red area voters to the Democrats.
Yeah.
Here's one. Here's a tough challenge for you, Heidi Henry. Climate change.
Wow, and it hit my area and is hitting my my work very hard right now. We have a horse farm now. My husband and I sold off all of the other parts of farming years ago, except for some organic produce and chickens, and the horses have been our livelihood. We've had 2 terrible hay crops in a row. What little hay we had left over from 2017, we shipped to Nebraska to help those that were flooded along the Missouri River. Here's the problem. I also do animal rescue, and hay has gone from about $3 to $4 a bale to up over 10. This winter is going to be a huge issue in my line of work with animals that are not going to be fed. There's just no affordable way to do it. So when I talk to the farmers out by me and they're trying to figure out how to balance their workload with the climate issues, the wet, we've had 2 hugely wet years right in a row. Our ground is not normally that wet. We don't usually get that. We get periods of dry and periods of heavy moisture, but I think we're right now like the 3rd and 4th wettest years on record right now, 2 in a row. And that's impacting all of us. I mean, right now with it not freezing, we have an issue with insect carryover, fungus carryover in our croplands. And now our governor stepped up and sold a lot of our grain to Taiwan, reopened markets to Mexico and to the Dominican Republic, which is going to help offload our grain from this year and next year. But trying to prepare for that, trying to get the farmers to prepare for that, and trying to get them to pay attention to this because they're used to the ebb and flow of weather cycles. But I'm not sure all of them, especially not the stubborn ones, see the correlation. And
I'll
they may
tell
not.
you, climate change is going to really start to affect the consumers, as Heidi was talking about. There's a hay shortage. Small farmers, mid-sized farmers who have livestock are dumping their livestock. They're sending it to slaughter before they hit the winter because they can't afford to pay for it. So it makes more sense to sell it off.
And it's sheep
so
and
stock
goats
up on
and-
your meat.
Yeah.
If you're a meat eater, stock
Well,
up on your meat in the next few months because
once-
it's going to skyrocket when
yeah.
it becomes in short supply.
But pork producers are now self-regulating themselves, so I don't know how much pork you probably want to get to my pork producer.
I'm gonna opt
I'm not
to
even
go
quite sure where to go with
vegetarian now.
pork producers are self-regulating
That
themselves.
would be-
But of
That's
course.
almost sexual. I don't know where to go with that one.
Thank
Ben,
you,
you know
DJT.
you can always self-regulate better than anyone else
That
can,
is
right?
correct.
It's
Yes.
always in someone's best interest.
Self-regulation.
Right.
And a slaughterhouse.
We're not even going anywhere near that. But no, there was an article, I forget where I read it. I think it may have been the New York Times. It was a scientist explaining how you should talk to climate change deniers to convince them that climate change is real. And it was a scientist who was also evangelical. And it was a woman. So she was saying that, I know that sounds like a contradiction to be evangelical and a scientist, but that's who I am. And then there were all these backdoor ways to try to convince people who are already being victimized in one way or another. Like you live on the ocean, the water's coming over. That may be a sign, in Florida, but no, still gonna vote for Trump anyway.
Right.
So, I don't know if I could do this, Marie. I don't know if I have it in me to try to convince.
It's exhausting, man. It really is. We do that a lot. We talk to folks and drop those monikers and semantics and really get into good conversations with people. But it's exhausting to try to get through to find what is that important aspect of someone, what's going to mean something to someone, because we're all individuals and it can take a long time.
Now, falling along the line of climate issues and being very wealthy, in Kansas, they just opened a huge complex for very wealthy people to buy condos where they can survive for years because climate will come and hit all of our shores, but it's probably not going to get to Kansas. So
they're building rich people bunkers
in Kansas.
so that they can be safe from the climate change. But they'll still
Crazy.
deny it and vote Republican.
Yeah, and my husband has family in Kansas, and a couple of them are on disability and they don't have Medicaid expansion, but they're living because this is all that's open to them from their disabilities, and yet they'll tell me that they're going to vote Trump. And I'm like, why? Well, we always vote Republican. I'm like, you're going to have to do better than that. And then I tell my husband it's time to leave Kansas.
I have a prediction. Iowa will go blue.
Whoa.
Oh, I think
I
it will.
predict
Get the
Iowa.
cannabis out.
No matter who?
Go blue no matter who.
Okay.
Wow. Why do you say that?
I have family in Iowa, and I have a lot of folks out there that I know, and we're talking the younger generation, the 22, 26, 28, have some serious concerns that you wouldn't think that would be important at that age. They were all brought up by Trumpers, and their parents have changed. They have changed and evolved. I'm telling you, Iowa, not real happy right now. It's going blue.
Wow. Let's just
My
put that one
prediction.
down right there. I love that prediction. Iowa went blue for Barack. 2008 and in 2012, I want to say.
We're hoping that they're going to dump both Joni Ernst and Steve King.
Definitely Joni Ernst.
Joni Ernst has got to go.
Senator Ernst.
She's one of the vulnerables and one on our list.
We should do a remote with the Heartland Mamas in Iowa.
We're going to the caucus. You should come. We were invited to 5 caucuses.
And it's in February, first week of February, right?
February 3rd.
You should come. It would be great.
Yeah.
We've been invited to attend one both with our friends in the Southwest Iowa Democrats and in Davenport we just got, which I haven't talked to Murray about, which is a lot closer. But we're going to help them, watch them, observe, set up. We'll do some helping. Like I told him, I said, we can set up chairs and like sweep floors, but we don't want any, we don't want to screw this up for anybody. And so we're going to go through and watch the whole process with them. I spent a lot of time in Iowa this past year and a half, and got to know some of the process. And a lot of the movers and shakers in these red little rural areas that are, they're making the candidates come to Southwest Iowa, which is, touching Kansas and Nebraska and all kinds of places you'd think it would never happen, All
right, got the Heartland Mamas in the studio. I love that prediction from Murray. Iowa's going blue in 2020. We've been promoting this discussion for a week. I allowed them to talk about this, that, and the other thing. Now we're going to take a break. Let them gather their thoughts. They were going to deal with the BB question. Bernie Bros. Also may ask them for their top 5. They don't know what I'm talking about with that, but I'll let them know. And I may give them the playlist quiz, D.
How long are we going to be here? Till 5 o'clock?
Yes, we got Heartland Mamas
Holy
in the studio.
crap.
We'll take a brief break. Be right back with the Heartland Mamas.
Okay.
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us to the weekend.
All right, we've been waiting for this moment all week long. Heidi Henry's been talking so much smack trash. I get these texts from her, emails from her. Bernie bro this, Bernie bro that. And Dennis and I are kind of Bernie bros. Both of us right now. I got my top 5, Heidi. I'm going to ask you guys your top 5. When I look at the candidates, I rank them. Some people that come on the show, the only name on their top 5 is Bernie. So
Okay.
Bernie, it's Bernie 1, Bernie 2, Bernie 3, Bernie 4, Bernie 5.
That's where the problem is.
And they're Bernie
there you go. You see that, D?
Yeah.
You got a problem.
That's right.
And
Let's say I'm a Bernie guy, not a Bernie bro. How about
And
that?
there's a significant difference with that.
All right, isn't that weird?
yeah, explain your issue with Bernie Bros, and also while you're at it, explain the difference between a Bernie Bro and a Bernie guy.
Well, okay, so I'm driving to see my dad up at the hospital in Winfield from my house. You know, it's an hour and a half drive. And I hear Miles on. And I'm telling you, Ben.
Oh, Miles Thursday.
In these times, writer Miles Camp Lassen?
That Miles?
Subscriber to In These Times and have read it, I think, since it started printing. So, but a lot of times when he's on, he's such a bro. I just fast forward right through it. Sorry, Miles.
Are you thinking Miles or Micah?
Well, both of them.
okay.
Both of them just drive.
We just threw Mike under the bus, too. Go ahead.
I was about to. So, and you asked Miles specifically. You said, people don't consider him to be Bernie to be a Democrat. Well, what would you say about that? Well, he always pivots. He never answers you. He always pivots, and he says to you, I'm paraphrasing here. Bernie Sanders is not beholden to any party, not either party. So he's not beholden to anyone. Well, to a Democrat like me, that sounds like Bernie Sanders wants all our toys and all our resources, but he doesn't want to do the work. When they did the Liberty and Justice Dinner in Iowa a few months ago, everybody sold tickets to help fundraise, and that money goes to whoever primaries through. Bernie Sanders refused to sell tickets or let his people in, so he refused to raise any money. Now, all the other candidates, there were 17 other candidates that raised money there, that he's happy to take, but he's not happy to do any of the work. So, and the other issue I have, and both Micah and Miles have said this, is when you ask them, who will they vote for if Bernie doesn't primary through? They pivot away from that question. They never answer you. Here's what I can tell you, is that Democrats will get behind whoever primaries through. Sanders, Steyer,
I forgot
Not
Steyer.
Judge, yeah.
I forgot. He's not in my top 5.
Yeah.
He's not.
He's not in my 5.
So they're going to get behind whoever primaries through and push him. The bros, if it's not Bernie, are going to pack up their toys and go home and sulk.
And Heidi
that's
and I
what they did
disagree.
in 2016.
So you should call, instead of calling them Bernie Bros, you should call them Bernie Babies.
They are. They're like,
Okay, what are you
But
doing, Ben?
Part of the bro
Want
aspect.
people to listen.
Part of the bro aspect comes because of the misogynistic tendencies that
Yes.
follow some of the more rabid enthusiasts.
and they're the ones that will say Hillary Clinton was the worst candidate ever, even when she was the best qualified person to run for president in my lifetime.
Qualifications, absolutely, without a doubt, but she had been demonized for 30 years by
I
the
know.
Republican Party, that there was so
But they don't need
much
to continue
baggage. It wasn't a good fit.
All right, I don't want to relitigate the 2016
No,
presidential.
I don't want to either, but they still do.
I voted for Hillary just like you guys did.
Yeah.
Okay, and I didn't even have trouble with it, but there were problems with Hillary Clinton. The Clintons have a legacy of problems that I am just now confronting. I'm like someone who was under the influence of the Clintons throughout the 90s, Heidi and
me and
I'm
Bill,
like,
not friends. You know?
I'm just like coming out of it going, oh my God, what did I? And I hope Pippi's listening. I had a dear friend, still a dear friend of mine, Pippi, loved Bill Clinton. When I was with Pippi, when Clinton left the White House, and she was like almost weeping, you know, the greatest president we ever have. And
Only because of who was coming in after him, you know?
Right.
But I got some serious issues with the Clinton. Let's not relitigate it. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hillary was far more qualified, in my humble opinion, than Donald John Trump, and far less corrupt than Donald John Trump.
And I would say, I know Bernie had been in the Senate and has a long career in politics, but Hillary's exposure in those other areas put her as more, definitely with foreign policy, put her in a position to be a better president.
All right, I'm going to ask
So
you
we'll
this
say
question, and this is, I don't think you guys have been here since, we spent about a week talking about Hillary on the Howard Stern show. And
I think that's what started my tweet to you.
Yeah, and Hillary on that show, they were talking about that moment in the debate where Donald Trump was walking behind her. And Howard Stern asked her about that, and she said that she was aware of his presence, but I'm paraphrasing, but that she couldn't respond because they would hold it against her that she was being, an assertive woman.
Do we know how that works?
We do, both of us, having been candidates working in the male-dominated fields we've worked in.
When I was still in corporate America, you had to, you're held to a different standard.
There is a double
May
standard.
Talked about that, just a
She
little
sure
bit
did.
ago. It is a different standard for women out there. I would have wanted to see her turn around and deck him, but we also know that that's not really. But then
But
again,
she lost the election anyway.
Right.
She lost the Electoral College, which if the Democrats are smart, we're going to take this damn bull by the horns and get rid of it once and for all. It's outlived its usefulness. It was never really that useful in the first place.
It's interesting. The American Foreign Wars, American Veterans of Foreign Wars, send out competitions for juniors and seniors in high school, speech competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And so they write a speech on one of several topics, and then they give the speech, and the local organization votes you through, and you can win scholarship money. So my boys, my oldest is getting those requests, and one of them was, one question that every applicant has to address is, how do you feel about the Electoral College, and should we change it? This is from, a militarily based organization, and I thought that was just such an interesting question to be asking 16, 17, 18-year-old
I think that's
kids.
a perfect question to ask that
This
age.
is, I'm heading in another guess at David Farr's country, but he's absolutely correct. The Democratic Party is run by wimps. They're always conceding.
Yes.
And the Republicans, after two times in this century, the loser has 2 times.
Is it 2?
In 2000 in Bush and 2016 with Donnie Trump. 2 times in this century, the loser has won because of the Electoral College, and in each case, it was a Republican who got to be all the marbles, and the Democrats have not moved at all to abolish it. And if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be year 20 of the effort to undo the Electoral College.
Ben, I would go so far as to say that if 2000 had gone another way, we would not have climate change issues, and
We still would, but we'd be working on them.
No, because we would have had Al Gore, so we would not have done that, and we certainly would not have been at war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and thinking about killing everybody in Iran right now. That wouldn't have happened. That change, that stupid hanging Chad thing in Florida, I think has brought us to this point.
All right, now let's close down the show by asking you. You don't have to name your top 5, but rank them right now. We'll start with you, Murray. I did mine already. I've already said Bernie's number 1. Don't hold that against me.
No, not at
Elizabeth Warren is number 2.
I have nothing against Bernie.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Can I tell you the difference between a bro and a
Guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Difference.
because that's really important. A bro is going to pick up their toys and go home. they are not Democrats, and they're not gonna stick with trying to move
They're
the
not going to
country
come
forward.
out and vote for whoever the Democratic primary candidate is.
Yeah.
They're going to pull their support,
And especially
that's
not
the
if it's a
problem
woman.
as we go in.
And the other thing that with a guy, he's more interested in making sure that our democracy survives. And every time I hear the bros, and I have to deal with them every day. And of course, Fred Gutenberg today had to beat him off with a stick, and his daughter was shot to death in the school. So how can we? And here's the thing with Bernie. Bernie needs to talk to his bros. This was the problem at the 2016 is that we didn't have. I'm sorry, I'm probably ticking Dennis off. But Bernie didn't have, he did not ever quell his
he can cut
base
us off.
and get his base under control. And I think that's what he needs to do now. He needs to tell him to stop being so mean to
He
people.
did come out very late in the game and say, "Oh, go support Hillary."
No,
very
actually, I'm going to
excitingly.
defend Bernie Sanders
He
on this
did it.
front.
He was out there.
He was out there giving speeches for Hillary Clinton. I'm defending
was.
Bernie Sanders because
He
he
was.
was.
But it was late in the game.
Not that late.
wasn't
Listen,
really.
he was no later. He was no later than Hillary was in 2008.
True.
And we had to
All
wait
right,
for
good
that
point.
one. I was an
Forever.
Obama supporter. I had to wait for Hillary.
Very
So
good point.
come on, you know.
It's not that. It's not the problem I have with him. It's his followers. Their ideology is so absolute that there's no room for anything else except for that Bernie absoluteness. And I just think that he needs to do a better job making his followers a little more cohesive and a little more malleable because we're at a time when we need that.
But
All
that's
right.
a part of what attracted them. He's an independent, so they don't feel the alliance.
That's why
They
he's not
like
a
that
Democrat.
alliance,
All right, so I'm going to give you my top five.
Okay.
Okay, my number one, Bernie. Number two, Elizabeth Warren. Number three, Andrew Yang. Number four, Amy Klobuchar. Number five, Joe Biden. That's where I break it down now with taking into account everybody who's dropped out of the race.
Yeah.
I'm not taking Bloomberg serious. I'm not taking Steyer serious. Maybe I should, but I'm not. So that's my five. Murray, who are yours?
I don't really have them in ranked order. I can, for different reasons, different ones, clearly. But my tops are Warren, Yang, Klobuchar, and I'm sorry if you're Bernie. All right, I know. But if you're gonna pick an old white guy, go with Tom Steyer.
Yep.
I'm extremely impressed with Tom Steyer. He reminds me a lot of J.B. Pritzker. Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you're an asshole. It means you can be based with a philanthropic mentality. That's how we got Roosevelt. That's how, the FDR Democrats are there because of that. So how can we not get, if you want an old white guy, go Tom Steyer. Come on, guys.
By the way, that's a great slogan for the Steyer campaign. Just because I'm a billionaire doesn't mean I'm an asshole.
Okay, I'll take credit for that.
All right, Heidi, what's your top five?
I'm pretty close to Murray with Yang and Steyer and Warren and Bernie, and I think the next one down though, I'm not a big Klobuchar fan.
Neither am I, but she's a woman.
Yeah, so that's about where I would fall.
So who's your fifth? Klobuchar?
Almost Cory Booker, and that's a really weird choice for me. But I got to meet him.
She has a crush on his
all right.
eyes. It's his
Okay.
eyes.
He is gorgeous.
The eyes have it. All right, they are the Heartland Mamas, and tell folks how they can follow your show.
Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.com.
You can find us on all of the social media except Instagram. We're learning that.
Yeah.
You can get us on any place you get your podcast.
Tune in
Heartland
Monday
Mamas.
at 10 for our weed show, so you know
With
how to
Canna
use
Consultants.
So you guys
Yeah.
live stream as well?
Yeah. Well, no.
No,
We're working on
Okay.
it.
Cool,
We're
cool,
getting
cool,
there.
cool.
Yeah, so we don't know how.
Oh.
Well-
yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
after.
we'll talk about off show. This is the guy to talk to. That young man right there.
Okay.
So I want to thank the Heartland Mamas for.
Thank you for
coming on.
having
Yeah,
us
thank you
so
for
much.
having
We
us.
love coming in and talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
love
really
you
do, and we
guys.
love coming down here. You've got
To the big city.
We love coming to the city.
Yeah.
If I could, I'd.
She likes the dogs in coats that go with her purse chicken. So.
Oh, okay.
I do like all the dogs. And
There
their
are plenty of
outfits.
dogs in this neighborhood, and they have their little padding on their feet
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
Heidi Henry, Murray Brio. Also want to thank May Whiteside and Romano Hussain earlier in the show. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, and as Heidi Henry can tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you on Tuesday, everybody.
Yeah, he's still doing that in 2020. And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and get Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Downloaders, You know, we live stream the show, right? It's true. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. Follow us on social media at Benny J Show. BENNY, the letter J Show on Facebook and Twitter. The Ben Joravsky Show on Instagram. Ben handles that account. And check out the Benny J bonus interviews, guys. Jim Coogan and more. See you Tuesday.